What's up, y'all? Check this out.
I can't get her off of me. She's now lying, but now that I started videotaping, she'll get off. We were going on a walk to get away from her. She doesn't want to walk. She just said oh, look at this. Now she's pretending. Now she's pretending that she's the victim. Get out of our way so we can go on a walk.
Hold on, give me her.
She won't let us out of the room. We'll go out the window. We'll go out the window. You're not safe. She's been playing with toys. She's been playing with toys like a child. She just told me to Google trauma response. We were having a conversation and she started doing like some kind of silent ballet shit. I'm gonna go out the window or the door. Which one do you want to allow me to go out?
You're on a child abuse registry.
I can't take my...
trust you alone.
I'm on a child abuse registry. The other day she was saying, that's so crazy that they did that. I didn't never want that. That's obviously stupid. Now she's lying. She doesn't trust me with her. You see, everybody's gonna know that's a lie. Because obviously she's been with me for the past many days. Yeah, she hasn't been alone with me. We haven't gone on walks all the time. She has just like, oh my God, see, these are the kinds of lies she tells.
I don't consent to this filming.
Yeah, well, here it is happening. Here it is happening. I didn't consent to you grabbing my neck and not letting me go and trying to shut my mouth with your hand.
Playing circus.
Yeah, we were playing circus. That's right. Oh, yeah, we're still playing circus, right?
Don't push me.
I'm not pushing you. You're holding me in the room. I'm opening the door. I'm opening the door.
If you have an issue with
I'm opening the door.
don't involve her.
Sarah's not letting me leave.
That may be the case. I'm not letting you leave with her. Because it's too cold outside.
Go ahead, call the police. I'll show them the video. Go ahead, go ahead.
It's too cold outside. It's
She's gonna be fine.
No jacket.
She's gonna be fine.
No reason for you to take her with you.
She's gonna be fine. Don't worry.
No reason for you
Don't
to
touch my
take her
backpack. Don't touch my stuff. Don't touch me.
with
Get away
her.
from me.
That's not okay to her.
Get away from me, Sarah. She just hit me. She's grabbing my nuts. I'm about to hit her in the face. I'm about to hit her in the face because she's hurting me. Get away from me. Walk to the other side of the room. Get off of me, Sarah. Not cold at all. She's just making up bullshit lies. We'll check the weather. We'll check the weather later. It's about 65 degrees. Because you've been hurting her and hurting me.
That is not true. I've been playing with her and minding my
What happened to calling the police? Oh, you don't want to call the police because you know you got evidence now that you're the perpetrator and I'm the victim. This is you, and now everybody's going to know this is you. It's what you've been doing for years in our relationship, playing like a victim.
Not true.
No, it's not true. The video show is true.
Doesn't have shoes on.
Yep, she's in my arms. She's fine, except for that her mom's physically assaulting her dad in front of her. Disappear with her? Where would I go?
I don't know. I do not trust you.
Oh, you don't trust me, huh?
No.
Yeah? But you were the one just choking me, right?
I was not choking you, Troy.
Oh, yeah, you weren't choking me. I just started video. Oh, you got on my back. You were just on my back, holding on to my back.
We were just playing.
Oh, yeah, we were just playing. Ooh, this is making you look bad. Everybody's gonna know this is a lie. Your whole fucking lie is coming apart. Your whole lie is coming apart.
I do not want you to disappear with her.
I'm not gonna disappear with her. We're going to the park, like we always do.
You're not going to.
We are going to the park right now. We're going to get a smoothie. What kind of smoothie you want? What kind of fruit do you want on that smoothie?
Strawberries.
Strawberries. Oh, yeah, you like those. Okay, so here's what happened just now. I tried to have a reasonable conversation. I said, she said something like, I want to protect Tundra. I said, you can't protect Tundra right now. You're attacking me physically. That's what's making Tundra distressed. You're making Tundra distressed. She said, I didn't try to attack you. I said, oh, video's going back on if you say that. And then she said it again, the video's going back on. She didn't try to attack me. She was just grabbing me, putting her hand like this while I tried to speak, hitting me with a shoe, grabbing my testicles, trying to squeeze them, kicking me, jumping on my back, trying to prevent me from leaving, barring the door. This is who Sarah is. And everybody's going to see this. And they're going to know that this is who you are.
All right. What's good, y'all? Welcome back to the Onyx Report, where we as black male justice advocates use critical analysis to uplift black men and boys. So basically, I showed that for those who are longtime supporters of the show. You know that that was a clip from a while ago. A gentleman I brought on the show talked about his experience in regard to custody of his child, his experience with his ex, all these kinds of issues after he experienced direct intimate partner violence. Today, he comes back to kind of update us on where things are. So that being said, before I bring him up, let me quickly acknowledge those who came through. Like, share, subscribe, join, and donate. Support the show if you will. Appreciate that. Shout out to Great I9, first one in the building. Blood Crow, Indigo, what's up? Shout out to Dardar. Appreciate the Cash App. Shout out to Aaron, Joe Average Brothers, Brother Spain Man. Good to see you in here. Barry, Christopher, good brother Malika, Fred. Good to see y'all in here. Barry, appreciate that support. Says tuition drop, support the scholars. Much appreciated, man. Much appreciated. Raheem, what's up? Brother Malika, appreciate that support. All right. Barry holding it down with the info about the show. Much appreciated. Check out the 17-point Black Male Political Agenda. And we do have elements dealing with abuse in that agenda. So you'll probably see a little bit as to why, as far as this is concerned. Shout out to Tim, KJ, what's up? Afro National, what's going on? Ryan, Anthony, just kind of wanted to greet those of you coming through. MF Doom, what's up? Dead Set, hey man, what's going on? D, what's good? Shout out to Ghetto User, appreciate that support. Thank you very much. Y'all support the show. Like, share, subscribe, join, and donate. The semester for me is coming to an end, so I'll be able to get back to some regular programming. So it's just been a real long and arduous one, but we're almost at the end of it. Wednesday's the last class. Finals is next week, so things will even out soon enough. Shout out to Reynolds. Shout out to Donnie. AKs and Curtains, what's going on? Yeah. So anyway, so let me go ahead and welcome the good brother up here so we can get into what's happened since. What's going on, man?
How are you?
I'm good. How about yourself?
Good.
Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to the audience again?
Yeah, my name is Troy Pasulka. I was born in Chicago, and I went to Cornell University and WashU Law School, and I was on the show before talking about that video pretty much, although I only had put smaller clips of it on online at that point. But just to summarize it or whatever. And anyway, I was had this situation where I decided to have a child with this woman who then, due to various factors, largely personality disorders caused by childhood trauma, just started acting crazy and violent and all kinds of things, and then abducted my child in the middle of 2021 for the fourth time or something. And because I wouldn't get back with her, she.
Well, before you continue, tell me how long were you with her before you started to see this type of behavior?
Sure. We met in the middle of 2016. Everything was perfect. Everything was fine. There's a Facebook post. She's months later. She's like, "My life is bliss. Thank you so much, Troy." And everything was fine. Everything was perfect. We decided to have a child the day after the child was conceived, like the next morning. Like the whole next day, she started doing this like lying stuff about various things, and we can get into that. But anyway, so it was the day after we conceived our child, a couple months into our relationship or so, and she later told me, years later, she texted me this book once I got her into therapy. After I finally convinced her to do intensive therapy, she texted me this book about how, well, one of the chapters, this is what she was referring to, is how childbirth can trigger sexual trauma for kids. Because, for example, in her case, her mother abandoned her as a kid, and then she was digitally penetrated by young girls. So she had this thing in her mind about penetration by young girls, and our daughter was in her stomach about to come out of her, right? And so that, in addition to other things and other factors and all kinds of things, I guess just changed her and just kind of made her a different person. And then as she kind of escalated and attacked and all kinds of things, then this like feedback loop happened where she would interpret the conflicts that she caused as her own oppression, or at least she would claim to. And that made her even worse.
So overall, so you met her 2016,
yeah,
and you guys decided to conceive within a couple of months of that time period?
Yeah. Well,
and
yeah, a couple months, although for most people, we were together all the time for those months. So it felt like in most relationships might feel like a year or two, but yeah, I had a job where I didn't need to be in any particular place often, and kind of same with her. And we were just, hanging out for months at a time.
But you're saying things were fine until something triggered her in regard to the pregnancy. So this was before she delivered.
This is the day after we had sex to have the baby.
Okay.
Right. So yeah.
Okay. So this comes on pretty early, but at this point, you've kind of gotten in with both feet, you know, toward the beginning, and you're noticing things are going sideways, but you're already in it. She's
Yeah.
pregnant.
And that day I said, after she escalated this conflict, I said, we should terminate this pregnancy and end the relationship. Because I already see how this is going to go. You're a pathological liar, and whatever. And she refused to terminate the pregnancy, and she started apologizing and stuff like that. And I said, okay, well, she's basically. So I knew at that point, basically, I don't know if I had the vocabulary for that at that point or understand fully what it meant, but I basically knew that she was going to abduct my child at some point, or like kind of then, or kind of try to remove my child from me, which if it was only going to impact me, that would be fine. But it was going to impact the child, and because I saw that something was off with her and with her mother, and she had kind of already started telling me about how all her past relationships devolved into some kind of conflict or abuse. So I knew that child was not going to be safe without me. So then I stayed, and even though I wanted to go, and that pattern repeated itself for a little over 4 years.
Okay. So it went 4 years. Now, the video I showed, how many years into the relationship was that?
That is a little bit more than 3 years into the relationship.
3 years. Okay. So tell us roughly where we left off last time, and then kind of update us on what's happened since. So at the end of the last show we did, I showed some pictures of you and your new family. Things were going really well. But where were you in regard to your baby's mother? Where was that situation at the end of the last interview?
Sure.
And then update us.
So I can't remember the exact date or place in the timeline, but basically we had talked before about how she had brought a false fraudulent litigation against me. I had already defeated it with videos and texts and emails of her admitting that I wasn't abusive and wanting to have more kids with me throughout our relationship, and offering custody, to 50-50 custody to me as I tried to amicably separate from her. So anyway, I defeated that legislation. The judge had told me that I think by this point the judge had denied. There's a law that says basically whoever wins that litigation should get their attorney's fees paid as long as the other person has money to pay them, and she does. And he said, no, I'm not going to make her pay. No real reasoning or anything. And I had started an appeal on that case, so that I can get my $50,000-$60,000 back or whatever from the first litigation. And there had been some temporary custody nonsense going on. Basically, that same judge, and we can get into more of the detail. I didn't really tell you how exactly the trial went. It's kind of an interesting story. Maybe we can get into that at some point if you want. But anyway, that judge, based on some FaceTime video where my kid's sobbing, begging her mother to come so that to be able to see me, and I'm singing to my daughter and trying to like comfort her and stuff. Based on that, the judge said, well, you didn't try to comfort your daughter, and I don't know, she's distressed, so we're taking away custody from you. And
this is what year?
Well,
what year did the judge?
The end of the trial was the end of 2021. Okay. So basically, she abducted the kid in mid 2021, and then she spent a month trying to get back with me. And then when I said, I'm going to take you to court if you don't let me see my daughter, then she said, okay, I'll let you see your daughter, and then didn't, and 5 days later filed domestic violence litigation against me so that she could frame the situation herself.
Okay.
And then at the trial, she dragged out the trial, and she, in collusion with the judge, perhaps dragged out the trial for about 6 months or so, during which I couldn't see my child, and then at the end of 2021, the judge said, okay, she loses the case because she has no evidence of abuse and all her claims basically have been disproven. And but I'm going to do this temporary quote unquote custody thing that ended up lasting 5 months or so, until it was basically renewed for no reason. And right at the end of 2021, when she lost, she soon filed a motion for reconsideration or a new trial or whatever. She wanted to do the whole thing over or just win, even though she had just lost. And so that took that.
Wait. So
Yes.
she wanted to redo the case.
Yes. Yes. So she filed a motion. So she filed a motion saying, it was kind of like 3 motions combined. She wanted a reconsideration. So she was just asking the judge, you gave your opinion, but think about it again and tell me what you think. Okay. But she said, if you're not going to do that or whatever, if that's not enough to make me win, let's do a new trial. Let's just do it all over again. Basically it was just those two essentially. There was a third thing, but it's kind of like covered by those two. So then and the only reason she filed that, probably to keep up her story among her social circle that she was wronged or she, lost unjustly or something, but also because child custody determinations were going on and she wanted to overwhelm me with shit to respond to. So she just filed this again. So I have to go through all the transcripts of everything the judge decided and all the evidence and just present the entire case again in paper. And so that I can't, so I don't have time to like get into all of her finances and the depositions for this and that and whatever. And so anyway, by March of 2023, that's when the judge heard there were some COVID related delays too, allegedly. And by March of 2023, like the court system kind of shut down and it's still partially shut down, I think, in California. By March of 2023, the judge had a hearing on her motions. My attorney showed up, her attorney showed up, whatever. And they talked a little bit. And the judge said, I'm keeping the ruling from before. And he might have been a little bit pissed or something about the fact that she wanted to redo it. I don't know. Maybe even though he seemed to be colluding with her attorney, perhaps he was like getting annoyed at them because like it was just so obvious. And so anyway, at that hearing, he didn't watch that video, but he said about that video, she's probably I don't know the exact phrasing. He said something like, she's probably committing a crime against him. Like, this is ridiculous, something like that. So anyway, which obviously she committed multiple crimes against me. The only reason he didn't say that, and before in November 2021, he was like, "Oh, I don't know. I have questions every time. I have more and more questions every time I watch that video." It's like, well, we just had a trial. If you had questions, just ask the questions. Like, but he wanted to basically ignore that video so that he could do whatever he wants. With custody and with the domestic violence stuff and all this stuff. There's a law in California, it's called Section 304, that says like any domestic violence in the last 5 years, the one act, that parent is presumed not to get custody. And he didn't follow that at all. And that law actually forces judges to inform parties that the law exists. I didn't know about the law during the whole trial, nor did my attorney tell me about it. But he didn't tell me that it existed either. So anyway, so that's what happened after the trial from November to March, basically. And then after that, there was child support hearings, which we can talk about. There was an interesting hearing at the end of 2022 where basically the attorney that had been appointed for the child, who was just colluding with her attorney, and refuses to talk to me and refuses to look at evidence from me and, stuff like this. The attorney for the child found out that I'm filing domestic violence litigation against her. And she filed a motion in Ventura County Court, the original court, saying, "Judge, please stop him from filing in other counties," even though nobody lives in Ventura and hasn't for years. And please stop him from filing in other counties. And she admitted during the hearing that there was no legal basis or authority for him to grant that order. But she asked for it anyway. And the judge, even though this is a new judge, and even though this judge is even worse than the first judge, he thought, I think, that would raise some red flags if he granted that a motion that abusive and that infringing on people's legal rights. Because basically, you could file a lawsuit wherever you want, whenever you want. You have a right to do that. Now, the judge you file in front of can dismiss it or whatever, but you cannot be stopped from filing a lawsuit. But they wanted to keep the litigation within Ventura County, where their criminal conspiracy, I can only assume it's criminal conspiracy, is maintaining itself, and they didn't want to get out. So anyway, so that happened, and some other things happened. Like before I filed elsewhere, I filed a motion saying just transfer the case to somewhere else, to Los Angeles, because that's where everybody is. There's no reason to be in Ventura County. The child's not in Ventura County. Nothing's happening in Ventura County. Transfer it. The witnesses are not in Ventura County. Transfer it to Los Angeles so we can proceed with child support and whatever else. And they denied that and refused to give any reasons for their denial. So certain legal maneuverings have been happening since then. But the most important thing that's been happening since I won and then re-won in March of 2022 is that I've been trying to get relief, protection from Los Angeles courts. And basically the way California domestic violence law works is that you can file something without including the other party, your abuser. And if you show evidence that you've been abused, you get a restraining order issued immediately. And then 3 weeks later, the party who the restraining order is issued against has a right to have a hearing or a trial or whatever. And they can dispute it, and then that temporary restraining order can be turned into a full restraining order, or can be just or to just expire, and there's no more restraining order because abuse has not been shown. So I've been filing for the last 6 months, year, various filings in Los Angeles, but they're all saying essentially the same thing. I was abused. Give me the restraining order. And the judges who in Los Angeles who have been receiving these say, yeah, there's like a checkbox. Yes, you were abused, essentially. But no, we're not going to do anything for you, which is a total violation of the law. And sometimes...
Hold on, wait. Have they provided any rationale as to why they've come to that conclusion?
Right. They've sometimes provided rationale, not more than one sentence or a certain checkbox or something. Their rationales are all nonsense. One of the rationales was recently there was a checkbox that said there's a checkbox that was left unchecked. It says you didn't provide evidence of abuse. So they didn't check that. It said, okay, you provided evidence of abuse. It said something like you didn't provide sufficient detail or something like that. Now, that is insane because I provided the video, which has more than sufficient detail, and I provided certain other allegations, and I have appealed that denial, and so that's in the appellate court right now. And I wrote a little paper or whatever motion saying this is absurd. Here's a case, for example, the law is supposed to be applied equally. Here's a case where a lady had no evidence of anything, basically, had a few dates here and there. It was just very vague stuff. And she was, and in that case, the appellate court said trial courts cannot deny when this level of evidence has been provided, when this level of detail has been provided. And it was like no level, basically. And mine has much more than that. And so there's been little justifications like that. There's also a law that says that that the courts have to respond to these filings within 1 day, like the day they get them. It's not supposed to be a complicated review process where they're going through all the evidence and thinking about just if you show like any proof of abuse, just boom, you get it. But they always delay ruling on my submissions for like a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. I call up the clerk's office. They have like judicial assistants basically that serves like kind of like the entire LA County. And I call them up, and every time I call them up to like check on the status of my filing, my different filings. They're like, yeah, I've never seen this. I don't know why it's not happening in one day. It should have been done already. So there's all kinds of things being done to basically just not follow the law, not give a meeting.
Now, what do you think the primary rationale is?
Oh, well, here's my theory. The Ventura court, so courts are supposed to coordinate with each other so that they're not issuing so that they're either not issuing contradictory orders, or that if they do, they're at least aware of that. And so probably what's happened is the judge in LA had to call the judge in Ventura, and the Ventura judge is probably interfering in some way in the LA determinations.
Okay. Now, let me put it another way. If you were a woman, do you think the response would be faster or different?
Yeah, I think the response would be immediate. Well, yeah, I mean, if I were a woman, then, I mean, I would have, something would have happened in the initial trial to give me full custody. Because even though my ex was the only one who filed domestic violence case initially, like I said, there's this law that says as soon as a judge hears allegations of abuse, he should investigate those expediently, like as soon as possible, and determine who needs to get custody based essentially solely on who is the abusive party. And there's a video of her abusing me, and there's all kinds of evidence that I never abused her, and there's no evidence that I did abuse her. So, and now that's already been decided. So a long time ago, I should have been given custody. Now, if we ignore that and say, well, how about just the recent LA filings? Yes, if I were a woman, I have no doubt that I would have been given restraining orders a year ago.
So let me understand. So in terms of the actual current custody standing, she has complete custody?
Yes.
Okay. How long has it been since you've been able to see your daughter?
So technically, kind of whenever I want, I can get on a Zoom call with a therapist and my daughter. Now, because of all the legal violations and manipulations and lies by the court, I have not done that because I know what's going to happen when I do that. They're going to start making stuff up, and because they already took a video where I'm consoling my daughter and said I wasn't, where my daughter's sobbing about her abduction, begging her mom, let me see my dad, and then they blamed the distress on me. So that's when there's a video. Now, I don't think I'm allowed to take video of these supervised visitation. So who knows what they're going to say during those interactions. And as importantly, two things. Number one, if I participate in those, my ex, Sarah, will, as she has done on every occasion for years, attempt to manipulate that and start filing new things against me. By the way, she filed a new domestic violence restraining order case against me this year, and we can talk about that too. So I would have to be dealing with all of that, all of her false allegations, while I'm trying to do this other court stuff that I have going on, and it would be overwhelming. And then there's also the emotional domestic violence aspect of it, that she would, that I don't want to go through more trauma with these false accusations also, because having effects on my health and stuff like that. Then the second thing is, if I start, so there's basically two ways to handle these calls with my daughter if I wanted to do them. One is to be like honest and talk about her feelings and stuff like this. If I do that, I will be blamed for doing that. If I explain to what's happening to her, as she says, like, Dad, what's going on? When can I see you? If I tell her the truth, I'll be blamed for distressing her.
And when you say the truth, what do you mean?
oh, like if she says, like, there's a video that I recently watched. It's a video of me FaceTiming with my daughter a couple months after the abduction in mid 2021. And my daughter wants to see me. And her mother is like hovering over her, not in the camera. She makes sure she's not on the camera, but she's constantly talking to the daughter throughout the video. And the daughter's like, I'm like, Tundra, my daughter, I'm like, focus on our conversation. We don't need to involve your mom, but she's being kidnapped by her mom and held hostage by her mom. So she probably emotionally, who she's entirely dependent on for her physical health and food and stuff. So she probably feels the need to like check in with her mom and make sure she's not going to be punished. Okay. So anyway, her mom keeps telling her the word yes as she says, because the kid's like, can I go see my dog? The mom keeps saying the word yes and saying other things. Then the kid, Tundra, keeps telling me, she said I can come see you. She said I could see you today. She said I could see you tomorrow. I'm like, okay, Tundra, that's not true. She's trying to trick you. And Tundra's response sometimes is to sob because she knows it's true. Sometimes she defends her abuser. No, she's not lying, because she's being brainwashed. And so I say, okay, Tundra. So just ask her if she can bring me, because Tundra will say, can I go tomorrow to see him? And her mom will say something like, yeah, I'll think about it, or yeah, whatever. I can't remember exactly the phrases. But then Tundra will say, Dad, see, she says I can come tomorrow. I said, that's not true, Tundra. She said, yes, she heard you, but she didn't say, yes, you can come tomorrow. Yes, she did, Dad. She said I could come tomorrow. And we know what happened. I haven't seen the kid in 2 years. So basically, anyway, so that's the truth. That's kind of what I mean by the truth. Like if I explain anything about what's happening and why I can't, because
Well, let me
yeah,
let me ask you this. So
yeah,
I know you have a new family.
yeah.
How when you think about the last couple years,
Yeah.
how would you say this has impacted you? And what impact, if any, would you say your new family is experiencing in relation to what you're dealing with?
Sure. I mean, there's monumental impact. My wife is amazing. So it seems like there's no impact on the family because she picks up all kinds of slack that I can't contribute on chores or whatever because, I'm writing these motions and I'm doing this stuff and, but she just gets it all done. You know, but financially, it's impacted us in terms of I have to go out and write these things and go through these years of text message and do these filings and whatever. My kid, like I have to, leave my kid so that I can, concentrate. My kid cries, every time I leave. Um, and, uh, there's just endless impacts. My health's been, I'm going to submit videos with my latest filing that basically the judge who most recently 2 months ago said, yes, you gave evidence of abuse, but we need more details. I'm part of the new filing I'm saying is like, this is totally illegal, what you're requiring. And the fact that you required it has impacted my health. And here's a video. This was weird. While I was writing this new filing, which I'm about done with and be done with in a couple of days, I was taking a nap one day and my wife took a video of me during my nap and froth is coming out of my mouth. I'm like, what the hell is that? And I look it up and it's probably, stress related stuff.
Right.
And I was on my bike also one of the days that I was writing this thing for 6 hours or whatever. And because the judge wants more details. So I'm going through all the details and like, where do I stop? Because I've already given enough details the first time. So, what am I supposed to do? So anyway, I'm trying to put in a lot of more details and I got in a car accident because I was just trying to do this turn. It's just very simple maneuver, but my brain was just so exhausted that I just couldn't do the control, and I just, fell, and I got all these scrapes on my body and stuff like that, and submitting those pictures. And these are normal, expected, predictable results of litigation abuse and judicial abuse. And you can look at law review articles about litigation abuse. All kinds of people report that this is what happens, obviously, when you're getting abused, not only by your abuser, but by the court system.
Now hold on with that. That's interesting. I want to kind of deal with that for a quick second. So how would you define litigation abuse?
So litigation abuse, I mean, the first word litigation, it must involve some kind of court process. Although I guess the threat of litigation abuse could also be considered litigation abuse. The threat of false allegations, stuff like this. It's a form of coercive control. Coercive control is coercion. Control is kind of control. Coercion means control, so it's kind of redundant. But it's an abusive tactic. There's other forms of coercive control, like somebody like kind of enslaving their partner and monitoring out all their stuff and whatever. But this is another form of coercive control, which is I'm going to use the court system against you if you don't comply. And so anyway.
Now, by training, what would you say your occupation is?
Well, I have a law degree and I'm a licensed attorney, but I practice teaching people reading comprehension and stuff like that to get into law school, to take the law school test.
Okay. So you're grappling with litigation abuse as a trained attorney.
Yes, although that's true, and that gives me a better opportunity to respond to it than most people would have. At the same time, I've never practiced as an attorney, and so you don't really learn how to be an attorney in law school. You learn a lot of stuff, but it's not necessarily all practical. And so I've had to, but now that I've been in the system for a couple of years, I kind of am getting more familiar with that. And that's basically how attorneys learn. They kind of go learn at a firm, and how their superiors tell them how to do things and what to do and exactly. And then they use kind of their law school reasoning and reading skills and basic knowledge of the law to execute those tests.
But to the average guy who's never been in court, how much different would this be had you not had some training?
Yeah. It's probably, well, in some ways, if the outcome was you don't get to see your daughter for several years, something like that, you could say it wouldn't be different at all. But so you could say, well, all the training doesn't matter when the courts are corrupt, when the courts are biased. It doesn't matter how good you are, you will lose. It doesn't matter how clear the evidence, you will lose. But at the same time, that's not entirely true, because I won the first case. And if I had lost, I would be paying her attorney's fees, and I would be paying another $60,000 or something. So, but at the same time, a person without training, doing something basically equivalent to a plea deal, could maybe avoid all that, but they would get a restraining order issued against them. So, anyway, it's hard to say exactly what. One of the major things, though, I think, is that in a situation like I was in, where the coercive control, partially threats of false accusations and court processes, but other things too, mostly child abductions, where that goes on for years, there's such an accumulation of communications and evidence and stuff like this, and experiences, that it's very difficult for people to sort through all that. Actually, the only reason I have a pretty good grasp on what the narrative is and what the story was and what happened is because, in part, these LA judges keep denying me relief. So I have to keep getting more and more clear about what actually happened. So I've had a year to think and refine of like what happened, why did it happen this way, what triggered what. So anyway, but many people who are not trained as lawyers can't even think about all that information in a coherent way. So I think that's one of the main differences.
Now, based on the kind of stereotypes that we often hear about, deadbeat fathers, black men don't want to be fathers. Why don't you just walk away? Why don't you just wash your hands of it? You got a new family, you got a new child. Why don't you just say, you know what, I'll wait till, my daughter's old enough to approach me as an adult and blah, blah, blah. Why go through all of this?
Sure. Well, a couple things. The primary concern is for my daughter's well-being. This abduction and etc. is permanently scarring for many children. And this could impact her for her entire life. Thankfully, I stayed in the situation for about 4 years of her life. So those are the critical years in the development of the mind of a person, as far as I've heard from the experts. And so hopefully I've been able to prevent my daughter from being totally destroyed by the experience. But it still could be harmful, and it'll be less and less harmful as quickly as it ends. That's when the harm will be mitigated as much as possible. The other reason is because the law is so clearly on my side. California domestic violence law, on paper, is very strong, and so it seems like at some point I might win. At some point I might get the restraining orders. At some point I might get sole custody. Now, see, so far I've been blocked at the ex parte stage, but I still get a hearing. Now, they could just disregard the law at the hearing too, but that's less likely. They might feel that it's easier to get away with denying relief when the other party hasn't had a chance to make their case. But that's exactly how California domestic law is set up. You're supposed to get relief before the other party gets a chance to make their case if you can show evidence of abuse. But even then, the law only works to the extent that people administering the law actually follow it. If they don't follow it, and the judges have judicial immunity. So if they disregard the law, no skin off their back, they just keep going. And now maybe at some point, if you can coordinate this appeal, maybe the appeal judges will reverse them. Maybe. But if they don't, they have judicial immunity too. There's no penalty really for a judge disregarding the law, especially in this area in these ways.
Okay. Let me share something with the audience and maybe yourself to some extent, just so we can kind of have something to offer here. Okay. Tell me something. Let me see. Troy, tell me if you can hear this. Could you hear anything just then? I can't hear you, Troy. You're muted.
I heard the word despite, and then it just didn't say anything.
No, that's good. That's what I wanted. Okay. All right. I just wanted to make sure it could come through. So I'm going to try and play this a little bit. Let's see if it'll let me. So we can just kind of get some stuff here. So check this real quick.
Despite stereotypes that intimate partner violence / homicide aggression is the sole purview of black males, it is not equal bidirectional in the black community, meaning men assault women to the same degree women assault men. And the numbers of interracial IPV homicide amongst the 40+ million black population is negligible, with data suggesting that women across race initiate violence first while opting to use weapons more often than men, abolishing the dual model. The dual model is the most common battery intervention program used in...
I'm just going to let Snoop talk to us for a little bit, but this is the Black Male Political Agenda, 17-point Black Male Political Agenda. Number 7 on there is intimate partner violence / homicide policy reform. And so we go through the impact of the Duluth model. We looked at carceral practices. We look at abuse rates. And you can see here how that tends to break down. Roughly speaking, see if I can enlarge that a bit. You have, as you can see here, right, nonviolent relationships are about 84% of the time. 16% of relationships are violent. Of that, 42% is unidirectional, right? One gender extending violence to another. 58% of that 16% of violent relationships is bidirectional, meaning both parties, male and female, are going back at each other. Out of the portion that is unidirectional, one gender extending violence to the other, the majority of that, 28% versus 14, is women initiating violence. That's the first part. If you look at this is coming from the same study, Jennifer Langrickson Rolling, right? This came out in 2012. Rates of bidirectional versus unidirectional intimate partner violence across samples. Now, this is important. Across samples. This study that she did was actually a meta study of a series of studies going back to the 1980s. And I know it's hard to see on this screen, but you can look this study up yourself. And what you'll find is in table 8, when they talk about rates of bidirectional and unidirectional violence reported among white, black, and Hispanic ethnic groups, what you find, and I know it's kind of hard to see here, is when you look at the female to male ratio of violence, right? Ratio of female to male versus male to female. For whites, it's 2.26. For Hispanics, it's 1.34. For blacks, it's 2.75. So what that means is 2.75 being the highest of the three, that the ratio of female to male violence over male to female violence is highest among the black community, meaning that black men endure more violence than any other demographic, not only of men, but women, right? So this study is really kind of breaking down the experience many black men have with violence that a lot of people don't talk about. Now we continue on, we're not going to go through this here. Sexual assault and rape acknowledgement, again, something else that black men experience in particular that people don't talk about. But I wanted to just share some basic information because there are brothers out there that are dealing with physical violence. They're dealing with sexual violence. They're dealing with, and I appreciate you introducing litigation abuse. I think if there was a study on litigation abuse, and I'm sure there may be, I've not delved into it yet. I think we find that black men experience this probably to an undue level. But if you're dealing with people that don't have legal training and don't have resources, this can be an extremely violent, kind of a bureaucratic process as it relates to men navigating this. And I think in many ways, women for generations have known that they have access to family courts in a very different way than men do. I think there's a comfort with that. I've listened to grandmothers tell daughters, tell granddaughters about what they should do, what type of litigation to engage in. The only time I hear men talking about it is either after it's happened or, while they're going through it. And this is one of the reasons I wanted to bring you up here to share your story again and give some updates so that men who may be going through this or know somebody who's going through this can at least be aware of some of these ideas, some of these concepts, some of the things you're doing to fight against it. And as a matter of fact, on that, one of the things you shared with me is that you've actually begun to form an organization. Would you be willing to share something about that with us?
Sure. Yeah, there's so much that can be said about everything you said, but I'll start with the organization. I started this organization. It's not much of an organization yet. I'll tell you what I've done so far and how it's progressed so far. It's called End the Judicial Abuse of Children. I think that, primarily it'll be focusing on family court situations, but there's other forms of judicial abuse of children. For example, stuff going on the U.S.-Mexico border or different things, potentially. And also juvenile courts and all kinds of things could perhaps fall under that barrier. But anyway, I think the abuse by court officials, not by parties who are going at it with each other or whatever. I mean, that too, but the abuse by judicial officials who are, trained attorneys and stuff, and they're supposed to know better and they're supposed to be considering evidence and stuff like that. The abuse of children through their parents and just directly seems like something everybody can get behind. So anyway, I started this group because, like I said, the law is only good enough. Is only as good as the people who enforce it, and those people aren't very good. So, but maybe they can be pressured into doing what they're supposed to be doing. And so, so I started this organization, and I figured that any form of pressure is going to be applied for example, removing judicial immunity or doing all kinds of things. Any form of pressure that's going to be applied needs people to apply it. And people are not going to be applying it if they are not even aware of what's going on in these court situations. So cases like mine, where there's extensive evidence, and anybody watching, in the next couple of days, I'm going to be filing this domestic violence case with all kinds of exhibits and text messages and videos, and many more videos than we've seen, not just this attack video, but many others. Cases like mine, where there's clear evidence, where anybody can look at the evidence and come to the same conclusion. Hundreds of people have seen that attack video that I post online, and I have not ever received one response that was like, "Oh no, I think she's the real victim here," or something. Anybody can look at it and see what's happening. And and it gets even worse she looks even worse when you see more of the context. Like, for example, on that video, she was bringing up, you were on this child abuse registry or something, which is associated with the time I was falsely arrested. And then there's all kinds of evidence around that. But basically, she said that told the prosecutors, like, this is ridiculous, I'm going to testify for him. Anyway, it's a long story. But anyway, cases like mine, where there's very clear evidence and videos and text messages and all kinds of things, if I can help people compile a few of those cases, as many as possible, then that and clearly communicate them with evidence, then that can alert people to the problem. Now, so I started the group. I've been soliciting people. I'm helping one woman right now gather her evidence. Like I said, she's not an attorney, and there's overwhelming amount of evidence, and so I'm helping her organize that evidence and present the relevant stuff. And people just don't know how to do that, really. But yeah, so there's thousands of people, though, on Facebook groups and stuff like this that claim they're being abused, and some of them certainly are. And among those, there's probably, I don't know how many of those have clear evidence. You don't always have evidence of abuse, but so I'm trying to get those people that have been abused, that have evidence, together to get that evidence out to the public in a coherent, concise way, and go from there in terms of developing tactics and strategies about how to respond to the abuse that they're facing from the court system facilitating their abusers. And so, but one thing I've found now that I've been through this experience, I talked to a lot of, there's a lot of men and a lot of women claiming that they've been abused by their partners and abused by the court system, etc. They're by both genders, me talking to women, me talking to men. There are very few people who, when you scratch the surface of their allegations, in my experience, that there's anything there, or that is comprehensible or convincing or persuasive. I was talking with one woman the other day, and I think my sense is, I don't know, but my sense is that women are lying more, falsely accusing people of abuse. I don't know if that's true, but it might be true. I was talking to one woman the other day who was like leading this effort. She's got like stuff. She's kind of like me. She claims she's abused and whatever, and she's like doing stuff to like help others and train court officials and whatever. And she was really excited when I responded to her text or whatever, and she got on the phone with me, and it was a bizarre conversation because she was like offering to help me, and I was like, okay, I can send you the information. I can send you the evidence of my abuse. She was like, oh no, no need. I was like, wait, what? You don't care about, you're offering to help somebody? You don't even care. And you know that this is a person who knows that many abusers claimed to be the victim, but she didn't care about whether I had evidence. Okay, that was a little strange. And so at the end of the conversation, basically, I said, okay, I'm not understanding. Yeah, so I was asking her, okay, so you are willing to send a letter on behalf of your organization or various people or whatever to say to the judge that I'm about to file to, hey, this is clear abuse, please follow the clear law, blah, blah, blah. And she was like, no. She didn't want to say no, but she was like, no. And then she said, well, will you do that for my case? I said, absolutely. Of course I'll do that for your case. And she's like, okay, I'll send you 300 pages of evidence and whatever. And I was like, okay, cool. So we talked a little bit more, and and at some point I asked her, so she was telling me like, oh no, that's not going to be helpful what you're asking for, because there's all kinds of cases that are well documented just like yours, and they still lose, and you got to do it this way. And so I was like, okay, I'm not not that's not been my experience, that there's lots of well documented, clearly documented cases. So I asked her. She had asked me to review her evidence of her abuse, and I said, okay, so you've heard me tell you that I have a video of being attacked. Do you have a video of being attacked? What's one piece of evidence of your 300 pages? What's one piece of evidence that that is, you know, compelling, that somebody can look at it and be persuaded or something? She didn't have a response. Actually, her response was to start gaslighting me and saying, well, oh, you know, well, I don't know. I don't want to make too many assumptions. She was like, oh, this is really triggering my trauma. I don't know why you're like comparing our situations and like saying that one's better than the other or more documented. I was like, you're the one that did that. You're the one that brought up your situation when I was just, you were offering to help me. I said, can you do this? You were like, well, can you do it for me? Because I have too. And I said, and you asked me to review your evidence, and now I'm just asking you, and you said you were going to send me 300 pages of evidence, and I'm asking you, just for example, do you just describe one piece of evidence?
Situation, yeah.
And so that's what I mean. If you scratch the surface a little bit on these claims, it's like very hard to tell who's the abuser and who's the victim. A lot of these people claiming to be the victim, like my ex, are the abusive party, or at least they were both abusive to each other or something. I don't know what's going on, but there's very few people that I've been talking to that are ready to present actual evidence of abuse. And
I think that's one of
go
the dimensions to litigation abuse that people don't talk about. Talking about the weaponization of the court system, really, and even the culture of what's supposed to be about justice, protection, so on and so forth. You're talking about the weaponization of that, right? In such fashion that you have whole demographics that aren't even expected to provide evidence. It's not even a requirement. I mean, I can't tell you how many cases I've seen where men have been accused, and the person accusing them doesn't have to have their name exposed. They don't have to have their identity exposed, even after it's been determined that it was a lie. They're still not really put into the public to the same degree, most particularly as the person that's been falsely accused. What I'd like to do is I'd like to bring in some people who have shared some experiences with you. Would you be willing to engage in a dialogue with some of the brothers who have gone through some aspects that you have?
Yeah, right now.
If you would, unless you want to.
Yeah. I was thinking if you're talking about a future episode or right now. Yeah.
No, right now. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm going to put this link out into the chat. Now, Dead Set, Kofa, and Malika, you know, I'd like for the three of you, or if you can, I understand this is impromptu, to definitely come up. But if anybody else comes up other than the three I mentioned, I'm asking that it primarily be brothers who have experienced some form of intimate partner violence, domestic violence yourself, and been on the receiving end of it, of course. And at the same time, we want to make sure that we are respectful to one another. This is, first of all, in terms of what Troy's doing, willing to be public, willing to expose what he's gone through, takes a great deal to do that. But also to the brothers that come up and share their experiences, again, that takes a great deal. So I want nothing but a respectful dialogue with Troy and any of the brothers that come up to talk about their experiences. Because I notice one of the things that tends to happen is people are real quick to blame brothers, real quick, you know, and even black males themselves will quickly blame you before even hearing what you have to say. So I want to make sure that this dialogue is supportive. I'm a welcome Dead Set up, and we'll see who else comes up. I put the link in the chat. Malika's coming through. What's going on, good brothers?
Hey, how you doing?
Peace. How y'all doing today?
Good. So this is Troy. I'm gonna put the names up so everybody can kind of see what's going on with that. So we got Brother Malika, we got Brother Dead Set. You heard, and well, you saw the video, I'm sure. You heard Troy talk about his experience. Dead Set, you were one of the first ones in the room to kind of start giving some responses in the chat. What's your immediate reflection on Troy's situation, especially after you saw the video?
My immediate reflection was, been there. And I'm still kind of raw on it because I just finished my hearing on May 2nd and May 3rd. It was a 2-day hearing. trying to get mine. So this is really fresh for me right now. But when I saw it, when I saw, what she was trying to do, the way she was trying to manipulate the situation, saying what basically you could see what was going on, but she's saying that it was something else. And they take that same attitude to the courtrooms, and then the courtrooms just let them have at it. And here's the real kicker. In my case, they would not allow hearsay on my side, but would allow hearsay on her side. It is a very common thing.
Now, Troy, have you had any experience with that?
Yes. The hearsay thing, yes. I don't. It triggers some memories of exactly that thing. And I haven't thought about those recently, so I'm not going to talk about those exactly. But the idea that the court, yes, I've seen in general the idea that somebody can present evidence, but you can't. So, for example, in my case, there was the GAL, the guardian ad litem, appointed as an attorney for the child. This attorney sat on. There's two tables at the courtroom. The attorney sat with Sarah's lawyer. And for example, the first time she watched that video, because she refused to receive evidence from me, I said, she called me up on the phone one day, the only time she's ever called me. I said, oh, would you like to see evidence? There was a longer conversation, but I said, oh, would you like to see evidence? She said, no. And then she came into court and said, I haven't received evidence from the other side, from Troy, as if she hadn't denied, as if she hadn't refused the evidence, my offer to give her evidence. And then anyway, she was watching the video of the attack for the first time, I think, in the court. And Sarah's lawyer, every 5 seconds, was whispering in her ear. And I said to the court, Your Honor, can she watch the video and make up her own mind instead of being guided on what the video is by Sarah's attorney? And the judge said, shut up. And we kept watching the video. But
The judge said, shut up.
No. I mean, he said, he didn't say the words shut up. He said, just play the video or something like that. He didn't respond at all. He didn't, which is anyway. So later on, she gives her quote unquote report to the judge. And she talks about these FaceTime videos with me and my daughter, the couple that she received from Sarah. I start talking about them on the witness stand later. The judge says, no, we're not getting into that. So basically, allegations were allowed to be brought against me, to which I was prevented from responding. And here's how the judge did it in my case. The judge said, there's two issues in her DV litigation. First, did I abuse her? We're going to have a trial about that or whatever. And then what should happen with custody? And we're going to have hearings about that. And we were always from the beginning, for months, promised, oh yeah, we're going to do custody hearings right after the DV. We're going to do custody hearings right after the DV. And so the judge said, no, we're not going to. So when I tried to respond to the guardian ad litem's accusations about these FaceTime videos, the judge said, no, we'll get into that later after the custody. By the time the custody happened, by the time the domestic violence trial was over, it concluded, the judge issued the ruling, I win. He said, there just wasn't any custody hearing. And there hasn't been any custody evidence. There's no hearing at which we could present evidence for custody. And there's not been any. And even though the whole basis for me not being allowed to talk about custody was that we were going to do it after the domestic violence trial. So yeah, that's an instance where people were allowed to present evidence against me. I wasn't allowed to present evidence against them. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So let me get Malika in on this. And Malika can correct me if I'm wrong. I think he might have been a former police officer. Go ahead and tell me something, brother. What are your responses to this?
Reminds me of a lot of cases. You're right. I was a police officer for 11 and a half years. And there were two sides that I would see. There would be actual cases, domestic violence cases, but there also be cases with male officers who would be in relationships with their wives or girlfriends. And the women that the male officers would deal with, and especially Black officers, their women would know that if there was any allegations, whether if it's true or not, their jobs would be on the line because police officers are held to a higher standard. And especially domestic violence is a very, 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 very sticky thing. And I've seen a lot of friends and a lot of men almost lose their jobs and also almost lose their families
Mm.
just with the simple situation of an argument. Because, like how you said, Dr. T, your word is nothing because a woman just has to say with the idea of some form of violence. And if you're a police officer, because you have a weapon and because you are a police officer, anything can happen. And a lot of men will be under investigation. And police officers under investigation for domestic violence, you could do a desk job. You'll be losing money because a lot of our money comes from court. And
Mm.
also, they will take your gun away. You can also have restraining orders put against you. Also, there were officers who have restraining orders and they can get kicked out of their own homes, and they were given divorce papers. And also, at the same time, they were going through divorces, going through investigation. You're losing money. And like how the brother said, he had to put hundreds and possibly thousands of dollars out to deal with a lot of court cases. So you're dealing with a court case, well as you're dealing with an investigation, well as you're dealing with a divorce, and a lot of men stressed, a lot of few men, how we would call, deleted themselves.
Mhm.
A lot of these men chucked it up and said, fine, I won't see my kids. A lot of men went through an investigation, but then you still have that dark cloud. Now, there were situations that I come upon where you have to remain biased. And like how Brother Troy, back when we did not have video cameras like how the way it is now. And what we have to rely on is being biased, and we have to get both sides of the situation. And what one thing that we did that they taught us in the academy, and sometimes you got to be very, very careful what type of officer you're dealing with, especially if you have female Black officers, because they will automatically go to the emotion and they automatically will take the female side. And I'm not saying that as a man, but I've been in situations and circumstances like that.
Okay. I appreciate.
But there are a lot of situations where I've come upon times where I could see Troy and his woman going at it, and there's a child. The first thing now you deal with is trying to take care of the child. The child is the first thing because you don't want the child to be traumatized. No
Mhm.
matter what's going on between the parent, the child is the most important thing. You check and see if both parties are hurt. Now, the thing is, here's how the way you play the trick. If both parties are talking, someone did this, someone did that, you lock them both up.
Mm.
Now, when you lock them both up, that's when you see who starts to sweat. When the woman starts saying, oh, da 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 da, no, we'll figure it out. And then we'll say, okay, can we call somebody to take the child? Now, if the mom can't take the child or relative take the child, automatically we'll take the child to DHS. Now, if both parents are freaking out, why are you going to take my child to DHS? Da 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 da. Now, that's when you call a supervisor. And these are just rules that you have to go by. When the woman's talking all this and all the times, and I said this before on your show, Dr. T. Hasan Johnson, 80 to 90% of the time in Black neighborhoods and in Black relationships, the Black woman is the aggressor. We know this. No matter whatever the situation or circumstances, I'm not saying that we men don't be aggressive, but nowadays in this time, because our women do not get any repercussions for the behavior.
Mm.
And even times when we as Black officers or any officer that comes around, we try to quell it out when the woman acts up and she gets mad and she does everything. And then when we have become aggressive, that's when we start seeing a change. What I see is a skewed law, especially when it comes to DV, according to men, because it is not in our favor.
Okay.
Not unless if it's something very, very serious. If a man is either hurt, maimed, or there's some actual viable footage. Like Troy, he had evidence, but if Troy was hurt, if Troy was maimed, if Troy and his daughter was visibly hurt and maimed, and then he had to call 911, and then you could lock her up, and now that's more evidence. But just the simple saying of a man raising his voice, if Troy was raising his voice, and Troy was keeping his voice at an audible level, and he was holding his daughter's mother back because he was trying to leave, and you could see that she was physically barricading the door. And he said, okay, he was trying to get out the window, and she was trying to stop him.
Mm.
That's proof. Now, it wasn't showing that she was being crazy or anything, but like he said, when he put the camera on,
Behavior change.
now the behavior changes.
Right.
See, here's the funny thing. I ask you, how crazy are they? How much of a mental problem you have? You see, you ain't that crazy when you know when the camera's on, you know how to act right.
Mm-hmm. That's a good
You
point.
ain't that crazy. You ain't that crazy when you know, okay, Troy's walking down the street, but she ain't trying to beat you up and trying to take the child out of your hands, and she's walking and keeping step with you. See, this is the thing that's going on, and the problem is that and this is another thing too, man. It's just terrible because when they say we black men don't care about our children, we don't care about our families, you know, this brother is getting stressed. A lot of black men are hurting because they want to be in their child's lives. But then we're dealing with a court system or just a system, period, that's totally in favor of a woman. But when you say a woman that's unstable, and as we speak, she's raising a child and filling a child's head with a lot of problems. And we don't even know at this time what this woman is doing to this child.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something that, I mean, we see, and it gets the problem because,
Well, I want to get Troy a chance to respond, and then bring in Kofa. But I want you to finish your point.
it was for me just seeing both sides of that
Mm-hmm.
and seeing men losing their jobs, losing their livelihood, losing their children because of, even if two people might have been having a domestic incident, and when people think domestic, it's not always violence.
Okay.
Domestic could be an argument you're having.
Mm-hmm.
Also, domestic violence also entitles texting, emails.
Mm-hmm. All right.
But I mean, it's just the point where you start seeing men losing their livelihood, losing their children, and
Right.
people just don't care.
Right. Right. Any response to that, Troy? Anything that comes to mind from you?
Yeah. Well, a lot of good information from the inside of the police department. I'll start with this one thing. I got a couple of things to say if that's okay. I just want to tell people what happened in the video because you can't see everything. Like, for example, he saw that she was on my back, then got off, then was barricading the door. Then he said, "Oh, Troy tried to get the window, and she tried to prevent that. She didn't try to prevent that. I was going out the window. She grabs my backpack, spins me around. I'm holding my child still. I am thrown into a dresser. I fall to the floor. She starts kicking me. You can't see any of this because the camera at this. You see her initially grab my backpack. I turn the camera around. I say, "Get off of me! Don't touch me! Don't touch my backpack!" I go back out to go out the window. It's like the ground floor window, and that's when it happens. Then I'm getting up as she's hitting me. I'm retreating to the bathroom, and she reaches down. You could see her bend down, but you got to like slow the video down or pause it or whatever. You could see her bend down. She tries to grab my testicles. I look down and I see her clenching fist right under my testicles, right? And that's when I say, I don't even touch her neck. Actually, it looks like I'm touching her neck. I was actually, if you look at the video slowly, I start going backwards because because I'm trying not to touch her, but I do want to put my hand like near her neck so that the cup of my hand prevents her from going this way or getting around, so that if she tries to come towards me, she's going to be stopped because she was just grabbing my testicles and I don't know what happens next after she grabs my testicles and I fall to the floor and maybe she gets a knife and kills me. Okay, I don't know what happens. And because, by the way, this whole video, nothing preceded this except for her harassing me for about an hour or something. But I wasn't doing anything. And then she leaves the room after my daughter's like weirded out because I had been keeping my daughter away from this, but I came and my ex left me alone at some point. So I went to take her my daughter, give her some food. And then my ex comes in, starts doing weird things with my daughter. My daughter's kind of being weirded out. She's trying to stay cool. But at some point, my ex leaves the room and I say, okay, let's go get ready for the park. So it was just a crazy escalation. And I just want to tell you what actually happened in the video. And then, yeah, and it's a great point about how crazy are they? They're not that crazy. Okay, they're crazy. So yes, as I'm going out of the house, she's hitting me. As soon as I walk out the door, it stops. And then she doesn't keep pace with me. If you notice, she does that for just a little bit. She gets in front of me so that it doesn't look like she's following me. Right. So she knows this entire time what's going on. And I thought throughout much of the relationship. So throughout much of the relationship, I thought no normal person would do this. So clearly she has a psychological issue. And she went into borderline personality therapy, borderline personality disorder, complex trauma therapy. I eventually got her to do these things. And she said, oh my God, that's the best therapy I ever had. Thank you so much, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Yes, I am yes. She went into therapy to treat persecutory delusions at some point. She said, eventually, yeah, you've been saying this the whole time. Thank you for getting me into this therapy. And there's emails and texts about all this and stuff. But I thought the whole time, my kind of reasoning was like, okay, so clearly she has a mental disorder. And my idea of mental disorder was, a person doesn't have control of their behavior. And so she's subconsciously doing this. I mean, her behavior was not subconscious. So there was always some kind of, but right. That was my theory. But what I realized is the mental disorder is actually the rewiring of the brain so that people choose violence and aggression and lies. And, and they think it's useful and good. So it's not that they don't have control over their behavior. It's that those things helped protect them as children. And those things are what they now choose habitually and without remorse. And so there's a lot of other things he said, but I'll leave it at that.
Well, what I want to do is I want to bring Kofa in, and then I want to open it up to a free flow where y'all can engage Troy directly. But just let me say, first of all, support Growth Talk with Kofa. Support the channel. He's doing some excellent work over there. Shout out to the brother. A few months ago, he did an incredible video series about his own experience, and I won't ask him to go through that again. I will ask him to let people know, how to find those videos because they're critical. But and thanks to everybody that came in. This just happened impromptu, and the three brothers were willing to come up and share their stories. I appreciate that. But Kofa, weigh in on this, brother. What are your thoughts?
Peace, everybody. Can you hear me good?
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah. First of all, Troy, I'm glad you're still here, brother, because it could have went left. It could have went totally different. Thank you for sharing your story because you don't have to. None of us do, because we know what the stereotype is that Black men don't talk, we don't speak, and then when we do, we often get shunned. So if we're not building with each other first and foremost, then I don't know who we're going to lean on. So thank you for sharing your story, Malika. Thank you for giving your expertise from your point of view as well. So the two videos that Doc is referring to, I did two videos called How I Almost Tory Lanez and Javante Davis myself, because it was like after Tory Lanez was sentenced, then Javante Davis got into the issue with his baby mama and got arrested. So it made me revert back to a situation I had with my ex when I was 26, and similar to Troy, but of course didn't have a cell phone at the time. But we argued for a couple of hours. I tried to walk away. Same thing with Troy. Now she's blocking the door to the bedroom. One bedroom apartment. One way in, one way out. We're on the second floor. So where am I going to go? So she's blocking. So I'm trying to leave. Then she pushes me, runs past, blocks the door like this, so I can't get past. So it goes on and on and on to escalate. And then she, she hits me a couple of times. I lose it. I got to the point, never put my hands on a woman before that, never did it after. But in that moment, at 26 years old, a hothead, you're putting hands on me and something that I'm paying for and making sure you don't have to do anything. I snapped and I choked her. I almost killed her. She stopped breathing. Again, had a whole out-of-body experience. I wish I was making it up. I saw me standing in the corner telling me to let her go while I was choking her. Like, I had a whole out-of-body experience. I can't describe it other than that. So I did. And this goes to the point of the mental health and things like that. She coughs, comes to, right back in the fight. Like I never just had to choke her out. And mind you, the whole time I'm trying to call the police, this is back in 2008. I had a little Nokia flip phone, tried to call the police initially when we had the argument. She snatches the phone, rips it in half. Luckily, I was working on bank trucks at the time, so I had my work, the old chirp cell phones. Luckily, I had that, so I was able to get in contact with the police, but I literally had to run out of my apartment, get chased around a car like a kid, like we're playing tag, to the point where I finally was able to get away, ran back upstairs, had already contacted the police, locked the door. She kicks my door, and all the pictures and stuff from that night, with, the scratches in my face, the kicking the deadbolt in on the door, I have those on the videos. There's 2 videos. I did one. I think it's like maybe 45 minutes. The other one is like 20 minutes where I put a cap on it. I might have the time frames reversed, but yes, go look at my page for those 2 videos, how I almost Tory Lanez and Javante Davis myself. I'm very transparent. I said I should have walked away initially, but nobody sees just a lover's quarrel turning into that. But I'm big on my channel, on Grow Talk with Kofa. I'm big on telling brothers to leave. I tried to love a woman, the same woman I tried to love through mental health issues. She was sexually assaulted as a child. So many different things. So I took sympathy, empathy with her, that, okay, I know why she's acting like this. I can be a little bit more patient. I love this woman. And people will say you're a simp, you're a beta, you're things like that. People forget that men were fixers. So if I already like you, on top of me being a fixer, almost a people pleaser, I'm going to stay in the fight, term used loosely. I'm going to stay in the fight of the relationship a little bit longer. Shout out to Quiet Storm. Appreciate you, brother. I'm going to stay a little bit longer than I should have. And this is why I want men to step out of that alpha beating your chest. I tell brothers all the time, shut the F up, man. Listen to what she's telling you. So when they're joking about, I'm crazy, believe her. Yeah. Don't take it as a joke. It makes for great comedy in the Black community, but don't take it as a joke. Leave. Because if you can take care of her and her kids in them situations, especially if that's not your ex-wife, your baby mama, whatever, if you could take care of her and some kids, you could take care of yourself as a man. Yeah. You have to get out your feelings, let it go, and walk away, because it could turn left. I just heard this is why I hopped on so quick, Doc. I appreciate the invite. I know it was impromptu. I literally just had a family member that had a hit put out on him by his baby mama.
Wow.
Literally.
Wow.
Tried to do, when I was explaining it to the other family member that was telling me, like, you know what that is? I took your term, Doc. The bulldogging. She tried to sick the new guy on him.
The pit bulling, yeah.
Yeah, pit bulling, yeah. Mm-hmm. So I used that term. I was like, this is exactly what Dr. T is always talking about. We've all seen it, but when you put it in those terms, it makes sense. Like, she's literally trying to sick. Now, by the grace of God.
One year before the video that you've seen of my own interaction with her, 1 year before that, she threatened to have her family members kill me.
Yeah, and that's I liken it to going back to Poetic Justice, when Tupac and Janet are going back and forth, and he pulls over and puts off the mail truck, if anybody remembers, and she's like, "Oh, I can't wait till you get back to LA. I'm gonna get them to F you up. I'm gonna get them." she already know. I know it's a movie, but we see it all the time. You just gave an example. I'm giving my personal example of a family member.
Yeah.
And you know, it's nothing to play with, because it happens, because then that turns into she's filling this guy with lies. But again, that's what I was about to say. By the grace of God, the guy had enough common sense to be like, oh shit, this bitch crazy for real. So he gets he gets his number, the ex's number, and calls him and gives him the head up, like, bruh, don't bring the baby up here, because they were exchanging the kid. He was like, don't bring, you know, the kid up here anymore, because she's trying to get me to kill you.
Wow.
So man to man, like, they had a
Wow.
conversation, you know, came to an understanding, and that was that. Because they were doing the exchange there in different states and things like that. We've all, you know, done it at some, not all, but you know, we've seen it done at some point where you drop the baby off, she come pick him up. But this time, when he was supposed to drop her off,
Can I say something to you, Kofa? I
he
mean to
wasn't
cut you
supposed to
off.
make it
You
back.
know what?
Yeah.
You know what your relative needs to do? He needs to make a police report for that.
Yeah, and
He needs to make a paper trail that
we're doing it, and that's what I had to convince some of the other family members to do. They kind of hopped on it. They were holding on to it. My mom spoke to him, and then I spoke to him. Like, you have to create a paper trail. You have to. Brothers, don't take it as a joke. Take it very serious, because this goes to Kevin's point. RP to him. It's been 1 year and they're still dancing on his grave. But this is why he used to ask those women. He used to kind of come on there and be like, oh, my ex-husband did this. Now she knows her face is on the screen. She knows it's going to go viral. So anybody in their family circle, friend circle, knows that who she's talking about is her ex-husband. Now these women get on camera talking about, oh, he used to abuse me, this, that, and the third. And Kevin, like he did, kept his cool. So did you file a police report?
Mhm.
First thing you got to go to is, men, it may sound like some sucker type of stuff, file a police report, bro. I've had too many men be like, man, I can't call the police on that girl. And then he want to get mad months later when she done bust the windows out his car, slashed his tires, and now he got to shell out money. And it's been going on for 6 to 9 months, because then you look like what we accuse the women of, like you like abuse, like you're just going to deal with it.
Can I add one thing?
Yeah.
Before filing a police report, documenting everything, that's good. Get the thing in writing, because at some point in the future, the guy's gonna go back maybe and say, "No, I never called him and said that."
Exactly.
Text the guy like, "Thanks again for telling me about, you know, that threat
Right.
she made on my life," and he'll be, and you know, so that he can respond like, "Oh yeah, no problem." Okay, then you got the screenshot of the text for later, that where it's in record that he admits he did say that.
Right.
Yeah. And so the good thing is, while he was on the phone, put him on speaker, and another family member got another cell phone in the house and recorded them as they spoke on the phone.
Good.
So
You gotta look into the laws, the criminal laws about eavesdropping and recording conversations, because that could be used against you potentially. So that's one thing. Why get that text message or some way of doing that. I'd say the text is probably the easiest way to do it if it's possible at all.
Yeah,
I was gonna
and see,
say
and
something.
that's good. I am going to share that with them. I'll give them a call tomorrow. It's 12 a.m. out here. I'm on the East Coast. I'm in Atlanta, but I'll call them tomorrow. But now they can't get back in touch with the guy. He's missing.
Oh,
Nobody's heard from him, because she tried to set him up too with a she had filed a restraining order on him. He didn't know it, but she filed a restraining order earlier in the week, invited him back over, so trying to rekindle and all that stuff. And then when he's getting ready to leave, she says, "Oh, just remember I love you." And from what was exchanged to me was, he felt a little bit weird, so he kind of just stood on the curb and just watched her as she drove off. Well, she basically drove around the corner, spun the block, literally came back to the apartment complex. It was 3 cop cars behind her.
I want to say something about police reports.
Yeah, I want to let Dead Set go in, and then I want to get Ian's contribution before he drops out. I don't know if he's having a connection issue. But just real quick, I do want to say also in relation to the story Kofa told, one of the problems I think men have when it comes to conflict, especially physical conflict with women, is we operate by a different code.
Yeah.
Men understand that there is, and Kevin used to talk about this all the time. Shout out to Kevin, the anniversary of his passing. I acknowledge that, peace to him. But we understand there is a point where things can go left. We get that. It's a given. With women, it's a very different dynamic. We're not socialized to engage like that. Even when women get physical, we're programmed to deal with other men in a certain way. So these brothers are giving y'all some really good information about how to deal with this, because this is not something that most of us have been socialized to deal with properly, especially on legal grounds. But let me get Dead Set to make a quick comment. Then I want to get Ian in, and then I can open it up to free flow, and you guys can engage Troy more directly. Go ahead, Dead Set.
Okay. Yeah, because I wanted to piggyback on Troy's comment about getting something other than that police report. Because one thing about police reports is police reports are also hearsay. Unless that officer is there to sponsor that evidence in, it's hearsay and it can be thrown out. So we talk about getting police reports. I'm letting y'all know a police report is not enough.
Okay. Ian, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right, brother. Appreciate you coming through, man. Weigh in on this real quick. What's your thoughts about it?
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate this. You guys sharing information, because it's a long time coming for men to actually sit down and have these discussions, and feel open and feel safe to share, that they've been in situations of abuse where we are not feeling like our manhood somehow we're less than a man, for going through these experiences, or even feeling like these are situations that we have to resolve, because a lot of men think, okay, now that it's over, I can just forget about it. But we're more than just, okay, physically something may have happened to us and we just brush it off, but we have a reputation, to uphold, what I'm saying, with our self-esteem, how our kids think about us, how other people think about us, and even how our kids, we want to make sure our legacy is intact. And this is part of that. I know I've been through my own struggles with domestic violence with my ex-wife. I never thought about calling the police. It never crossed my mind. Actually, you know what I'm saying? Funny enough, I never thought, that many times a couple times she physically struck me, over some simple argument. I never thought, that was the thing to do. Several times I forgave her, and after maybe the fourth incident, I gave her a black eye, but that was that was just
Allegedly.
allegedly. I mean, my self-esteem as a human being, just came into play. You know what I'm saying? I just something was like, okay, I can't take this. I mean, I think it kind of ran in her family, I guess. I think because there was another situation where her sister came to visit, and that we had a kind of a slight argument or whatever. Which it was just. I'm not saying that we argued all the time. That's usual. I mean, and the sister was like, hit him in the face, hit him in the hit him in the face, type of thing. But God Almighty, I mean, I've been there, and I'm glad to hear that these brothers are stepping up, and they are kind of reclaiming their sense of self through the courts and through the court of public opinion. So kudos to all of you guys.
Can I jump in real quick, Doc?
Go ahead.
It was something that Ian just said about how he forgave her. So, brothers, y'all need to understand, man, forgiveness does not equate to acceptance. You can forgive and leave and let it go. It was a brother I was listening to.
Stay gone.
Yeah, and stay gone and don't go back. Because again, I got to do part 3. Because it's the same woman that I end up getting back with 10 years later, thinking that we were all good. She had matured. She came through stuff, and she had 2 kids, and that didn't go well either.
Yeah.
So, but I was listening to a brother. I know we can get in these spaces that we often don't talk about dating women with kids when you and the kids hit it off. especially if you don't got kids of your own. You start to see in family structure and things like that. I know I did. I know I'm not the only one, so I'm not ashamed to say it out loud. But as one brother I heard on YouTube say a couple weeks ago, he said, guess what? When they came as a package deal, when that breakup happened, they had to leave as a package deal. Don't let these women tether you to these children, and you're the one taking care of them, and now she's on boyfriend number 3 after you, and you're still the only father that child knows, because then it becomes a financial obligation a lot of times. But I know I'm kind of veering off, but there's layers to it.
You can be put on child support too.
Yes, you can.
Yeah, there's a couple of cases here. They unequivocally know that that's not that man's child. She was 6-7 years old, but because he was the only father that child knew, he's the one paying child support.
Well, I want to get first of all, Troy, man, we just saw your daughter a second ago. Gorgeous, you know what I mean? Beautiful little girl. I wanted to get you to talk about something you briefly touched on. Then I want to get, the fellas to kind of weigh in on it. You talked about a second fraudulent abuse litigation from earlier this year. And it sounded to me like you said that your ex actually testified on your behalf, but I may have misunderstood you. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so you're combining 2 separate incidents. In one, 6 months before the video you saw, she abducted my child. We were out in public, just doing whatever, and there was this public dance thing, and we were going to dance together, but I had a business call, and I took my daughter, who was sleeping, to just chill with me while I did the call. So my ex was dancing. I came back, and she's dancing with some other guys, and I don't really care about that, but normally I wouldn't care at all about that, but she had just been abusing me for the last 3 weeks or whatever, and just being a total, whatever. So then I was like, she comes over to me, and I'm just like looking at her, and she comes over to me and she just starts lying and stuff, oh, blah, 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 whatever. I'm like, okay, whatever. And we're ready to go. So I start walking home, and she's walking with me, and she takes the child, because the child's been with me the whole time, just like, hey, mom, whatever. So she takes the child, and then she's walking with me, and then at some point I turn back and she's not there. Okay, so 5 hours later or something, I don't know how many hours later, I get home, I walk home, it's like not that far away. And 5 hours later, she calls me, she's like, I'm scared. I'm like, what are you scared about? What are you talking about? I'm scared that you're going to kill me or something. People kill people about infidelity. I'm like, I'm not even mad at you. Just come upstairs. What are you doing? And she doesn't. So I go down to get her. She hides in some bathroom, and where she was in Chipotle or something, and she calls the police. The police come up. It's like real late at this point. The police come up with my daughter, and my daughter runs into my arms. Hey, daddy, whatever. And so I'm sitting on the bed, and the police are there, and they're like, okay, well, Sarah's going to leave with the child. I'm like, no, the child's staying in her house. They're like, well, no, that's not going to happen. I'm like, okay, well, if you want to arrest me, whatever, but I'm not going to give my daughter to Sarah to take her to an undisclosed location in the middle of the night when she seems to be psychologically unstable. And she just, last time we moved, which was just a couple weeks ago, she left my kid playing with adult scissors just while she was on the phone or something. And I walked in. So no, that's not happening. If you want to arrest me, that's fine. Instead of arresting me, they just harassed me for a while. Then they tackled me. Then they take me to jail. Then from my jail cell, I hear their superior saying, yeah, just make up that he's wrestled the kid out of the lady's arms. And so anyway, this trial happens. The body cam footage comes out. The prosecutors, the trial didn't happen. Sorry. I was just arraigned or whatever. But the prosecutors watched the videotape months later and said, what came to court and said, we can't prove our trial. Never mind. Get this out of here. And so, because the video showed that I didn't do anything, I was charged with child endangerment. The police officers, I was sitting on the floor with my kid, they tackled me and scratched the kid's head and threw me into the floor. And the litigation abuse was going to start then, but she called me the next day and was apologizing and stuff like that. When she knew that I was like going to forgive her, because at this point I was like, wow, this was the craziest thing yet. She must have real big mental problems. And still, my thought was mental problems means that she's not choosing this. So okay, I just got to get her help or something. So I forgave her. And so then she told prosecutors, you know what, I'm going to testify on his behalf. And she admits that she chose not to testify. She admitted that in the proceedings a year or two later. And so that's that incident. The newest incident is, you know, after the basically she or the GAL, whatever, filed the motion in court at the end of 2022 saying, don't let him file a domestic violence case outside of Ventura County. And the judge denied it. Then I was like, okay, so she knows it's coming. So I might as well, I know her by now, so this is not going to go anywhere, but you know, maybe there's a 1% chance that she'll stop. So I text her or whatever saying like, hey, you know, you're still refusing to send me pictures of the kid. You're still, you know, refusing to tell me where the kid goes to school. You're still, you know, I'm going to file a domestic violence case against you. You can stop the abuse now, or we can go forward and I can show that you perjured yourself and maybe you get prosecuted and sent to jail. And maybe I got to explain to our kid why you're in jail. You want to just stop? And so she files a domestic violence case against me saying, she's saying basically I threatened her life in those messages, and that my psychotic violence and aggression is escalating and she doesn't know what's going to happen next. And the judge said, the checkboxes, that's not abuse. She presented the message and the judge said that's not abuse. And so she got her temporary order denied. She didn't show up for the hearing to try to get a full order.
I want to comment on that just a little bit.
Please, go ahead.
Because I went through pretty much the same thing, all except I think y'all already know my case. I don't know if you know Troy, but my ex-wife claimed that I was sexually abusing my daughter. And of course it got investigated, thrown out, ruled out by a judge. But during my divorce hearing, the judge who issued the divorce stated that with the evidence in front of him, this wasn't contrived. I believe you did it. And then I lost my children.
What?
Yep, that's what happened. And so December of last year, I went through a child custody evaluation. And I've already mentioned that I had my hearings on May 2nd and May 3rd. And I'm a pro se litigant, so I'm cross-examining this guy. Can you believe that the child custody evaluation was so biased that the judge had to beat him over the head verbally for the amount of bias that was in that custody evaluation? And this is the first time I'd ever seen a judge do it. But this judge here, she was also a pediatrician who spent 10 years training at Johns Hopkins out here. But she gave that man a verbal beating that I'd never seen before. And I was like, jeez. I mean, because she saw things in it that I didn't see, even though I read the evaluation. But it goes to show, like, this is a systemic problem. At every point in the procedures, from that judge to CPS to DHS to the custody evaluators, the whole 9 yards, it's just stacked against you. And it has just turned out that he was an Indian man too. This man's bias was so egregiously biased that the judge just couldn't sit there and not say anything.
I have a case that I told you I'm working with this one woman to try to get her facts together. I was reading her transcript from her hearing, and the GAL, the child attorney, and the male partner's attorney are both like accusing this lady of things, and she's pro se and she doesn't quite know what she's doing, and she's having a hard time responding or whatever. But hold on one second. And anyway, so the accusations against this lady who claims she's being abused and might be being abused, I haven't gone through all the evidence yet, but the accusations against her were at least two that were contradictory. Oh, we're taking your kids away from you because we don't believe that you'll take them to the doctor because you wrote some letter, which was never presented, it seemed like, to the school saying something about, I don't know, whatever, and you're a Buddhist and something, so you won't take them to the doctor. And then another allegations, oh, you took him to the doctor one time. You took him to the hospital when you should have been giving him to the father because it was his time, and you took him to the hospital and around. So two totally contradictory allegations. And I read a police report from that incident where the father called the police on the mother and said, and the police officer's writing, and the police officer said, father told me that the mother didn't tell him where she took the kids. Mother showed me the text messages where she did tell father, and he's responding or whatever. So anyway, that's a situation where the child attorney is, and together with the, possibly abusive parents attorney is colluding to make even contradictory allegations. It just didn't make any sense, and it was just innuendo and bullshit and disproven stuff. And it happens all the time. I'm only surprised that the judge called her out. I'm not surprised that the GAL was biased. I'm surprised that the judge said something and didn't collude with the GAL. But anyway.
May I make a
Go ahead, Malika.
statement? To kind of piggyback off of Kofa, and also something with Troy with the incident, like he said, when he had went out with his daughter's mother and a daughter, and they were going out in a dancing situation. Certain things, like Brother Kofa said, red flags. This is something that we men, and definitely young men, we got to do. I know she might be attractive. I know the sex might be good. And also a lot of times black men, Dennis Sperling said this, and also Kevin said this, and Angry Man has said this. We got that beta male blue chip in our heads. And we got to we got to take it out. When you start noticing red flags of certain behaviors of them, that acting simple, doing stuff like that, like when, Troy, all right, and I'm not saying this, pointing this at Troy, like, all right, she danced with other dudes and, automatically, but she knew it was wrong. And she takes the child and then she calls and you notice, I'm like, okay, there's a problem. And now, you go pick the child up, she calls the cops. And then like what Brother Kofa said, the chick says to the other dude, hey, I just want to let you know I love you. And she does a 360 around the block and 3 cop cars are coming. These are a lot of times, men, we see the red flags, but we don't pay attention to them. And this is how we get caught up in these situations now. We've all been through situations with red flags. And sometimes we could just be in the car. We could just be around them and something stupid jumps off and we just happen to be there. This is stuff that we have to be privy. And just like Brother Kofa said, get out of there and leave.
Mm-hmm.
Leave. I know you might have children or something. And here's the funny thing. And I agree with you, Brother Kofa. If them kids ain't yours, leave. You might feel for them, but leave. This is the problem that we have.
The problem I have with that argument is that sometimes there are no red flags. And sometimes, they just, and in fact, more often than not, in my experience, there were no red flags. I mean, by the time I was already committed, I already have children, and my children are at that point, my youngest was 2 years old. That's when all this came raining down. So I was 7 years into this. No red flags whatsoever.
And that's the sick thing, though. Dead set. You don't know what it's like, kind of like a Manchurian candidate. You don't know when the Order 66 is going to happen.
Can I say something about this? Because I want to say two things. One about my situation, but also just in general. So in my particular situation, it triggered the day she got pregnant. So there was nothing. Okay, I'll say this, but I'm going to take it back in a second. There was nothing before that I would have been like, oh, that was bad, or there was nothing. It was just fine. It was perfect. And so before the kid came into being, no red flags. Now, as soon as the kid came into being, red flag after red flag. But at that point, I stayed for a while to protect the formative years of the child. who kept getting abducted whenever I would leave. But I would sometimes leave, but then the kid would get abducted. So then I learned, oh, okay, I can't leave unless I want the kid abducted. And then when the kid gets abducted, the mom's calling me, I want you back, whatever. I can't even hardly feed the kid. I'm so sad, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Right. So there's some relationships, especially with kids involved, where you can leave, but that will also have consequences, especially for your kid.
Mm-hmm.
And those might be worse than staying, at least for a bit, at least for their early years or so, so it's a little more complicated. At the same time, I said there was no red flags in my situation. I'm sure if I was smarter, I could have looked for them harder and I would have found something, because normal people, healthy people don't do these behaviors. I don't think. I mean, even if the legal system allows you and enables you to do these behaviors, why would you want to? Why would you want to mess up your kid and your relationship? Why would you want to do this? There's something in their brains, probably about 1 trillion somethings of different neural connections and whatever. There is that there in them if they did the stuff.
But there's also programming too. Social programming. My ex-wife, she came to United States. I guess when she said when she was 4, and so she was she was mostly Americanized. I didn't realize she was Jamaican or anything when I met her. I wasn't really. I really didn't really understand the difference between different kind of Black people from the diaspora or whatever. So there was one day we had I don't even know if it was an argument. I don't know. For me, I don't even see a lot of these as real arguments. But one day we were sitting in the car, and I think our daughter was born or whatever, and this nothing having to do with our kids, nothing even real serious again. Like most cases. She said to me, right? I think just to show her dominance, and it didn't have anything to do with kids or anything, the conversation. She said, I can take the kids and leave and go to another state and the police will be on my side. We're in our early 20s, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, it doesn't, it doesn't really register on my brain because I'm not really that sophisticated. You know what I'm saying? And I really don't even understand, I love this person and I think she loves me. I'm like, the whole connection to the system, it really didn't register until I got into the manosphere. I really didn't completely understand how much their brain is wired into the social structure,
But you know what the funny thing though, Ian? Why would she just bring that up like in just casual conversation? You know what I mean? You know what I mean?
I have no idea.
This is what I'm saying, where a person feels that comfortable to say that to you. And I guess probably that was a test to see how the way she would take, how the way you would take it, or how the way things going on. But she's letting you know. See, that's right then and there, to me, that's a red flag for her, letting you know, hey, at any time, I can do X, Y, and Z, and you can't do anything about it.
That's one of the reasons why.
But if you don't have any familiarity with the court system, or you never been through that, you wouldn't even know what she was talking about. And that's what he said. Like, I didn't even know, what does that mean? It's as if she said Barbagugalugumoga. You'd be like, look at her and you'd be like, I don't know what that was, but you just keep going, right?
Also, you know what?
So
This is true though.
You have to understand. And there's situations that are more subtle than that. And sometimes she doesn't say anything, and you have to try to probe it. If you're smart, you will, when you start the relationship, try to probe it. But this is not smart like just people are smart. You have to actually study these things. And that's why it's important to have these conversations, so that people can see this video before they get into the relationship, so they know, okay, I cannot decide to have kids with somebody before I probe, what is your family history? Let me talk to your parents. Let me talk to this. Let me talk to this person. And we had social systems, but this was all destroyed during slavery. There were social systems that would
That help
vet
with that.
people.
Yes.
You know, parents would talk to parents, all this stuff, right? And it's also been destroyed even just in modern society in general, but I think especially for Black people probably. So
Yeah,
anyway,
because you know why? Well, especially for us Black men, you got to understand for the past 40 to 60 years, and what's the percentage now, Doc, that all Black females of all socioeconomic backgrounds is going up to 80% now that are raising single children?
Oh,
yeah,
last
that too. You don't have to go back as far as slavery. That's right. I mean, people
No,
don't
I'm
even
saying
have
for the
parents that
past,
would help with that.
no, I'm
Right,
saying
right,
for the past 40, 60 years up to
right,
now.
right.
Mhm.
But if you realize this, we're being raised with a feminine and often feminist, womanist mindset that we don't vet women. A lot of times Black men, we're just happy to be in a relationship with a woman.
Well, we learn to defer to them. We learn
Yeah.
to kind of pedestalize them. We learn to, because in many ways, the way we're taught our manhood is reflected in how happy she is.
Yeah.
Exactly.
The
And
kind of
that's
thought processes.
Happy wife, happy life.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
that's
yeah.
what I was gonna say, but that goes to the socialization piece. So when she's saying off the wall stuff like that, as Ian just mentioned, it's off the wall stuff for a woman to say, for a lot of men, especially men in the Black community, it's normal. So it's not crazy.
Mhm.
So to Dead Set's point, it's not a red flag.
Exactly.
Because she this is just par for the course. It's like even some of these brothers in the red pill manosphere space, if you want to say, when some brothers start complaining about women, they like, oh man, you just got to suck that up, man. It's just women. We compartmentalize it because this is normal behavior, even though we know it's not psychologically normal. We mean normal as in a pattern. And
Mhm.
this is why I always say Black men know Black women. Black women don't know Black men. They know
Exactly.
Black boys. So as soon as their son start hitting 15 and his nuts drop and his testosterone is up, we hear mother after mother after mother after mother saying, I don't know what to do with him. This ain't my son. Well, he's not 4 years old anymore. He's
Mhm.
becoming a man. And this is why I say that Black men know Black women. Since we were little boys, we've been learning Black women. I say it all the time. I had to know what was going to piss off my grandmama so I didn't get my ass whooped. I had to know what was going to keep my mother happy so I can go outside and play with my friends.
Mhm.
We have been learning women since we were little boys. They have not been taught and had to learn men.
Right.
I
So
want to
again,
pause
this sporadic behavior we see once we get into the relationships. Well, I seen my grandmama hit my granddaddy with a frying pan. It must be okay. I seen my mama cuss my daddy out in public. It must be okay. I'm just throwing, stereotypical stereotypes out there. But we've seen older Black women cut a fool on men. And if the men had sense, then it wasn't this stereotype that granddaddy just slapped backhander in the mouth and that was that. Most of that stuff didn't happen like that. Again, that was the color purpling of America that KS spoke about again. That just wasn't true. Were there pockets of it? Yes. Was it par for the course and normal? No, it was not. But we've seen more Black women cut a damn fool and get physically violent than the men because, as Doc just said, we operate from a different space. I know I can't get upset like that. When Black men get upset and we lose our cool, we die or go to jail. Pick one.
That's what I wanted to posit because, like we mentioned abuse when she was a child, and I remember before I married my second wife, she was talking about how she was abused, and then I asked her to go into that. Come to find out, there was no abuse. She was never abused as a child. She was raised with her father, and I spoke to her father. I spoke. I spoke to her father. I spoke to her mother. There was no abuse, but she was making that up because that's what was trending at the time.
That's the norm.
That's the norm.
Did she claim she was physically abused, or did she say like emotionally?
She claimed that she was sexually abused.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, yeah. And then I was like, wait a minute, your story is not making any sense.
How do you know that how do you know that she wasn't?
Truth be told, I don't know that she wasn't. Only thing I heard was her story. And then when I went and spoke to her parents about it, her parents, I mean, mind you, I was 19 years older than my last wife.
Mm.
So I wasn't a young man doing this. I had been married for 15 years prior to that. So me and her parents, we were close to the same age. And when I went and spoke to them, it was like, well, that never happened. What is she talking about? And then when she tried to mention some dates, and it was just like, no. So then finally she came forward and she said, yeah, maybe it didn't happen. I was sitting back like, dude, because she was 22 years old when we got married and she was fresh out of college. She went to Louisiana Tech. So, girls throwing these stories around, and I was like, I already know how it went because I've been on the college campuses before when I was young. And I was like, man, you're making that ish up.
Are
But
you saying women in general at one point used to make up stories about being abused?
Yes.
dude, I think I put it in the chat about Dr. Eugene Kanan's study. And this doctor, he did this study. You can find it in the Office of Judicial Reports. I think it's, what is it, the OIP? I forgot what it was called. But I did a video on it, and Dr. Eugene Kanan stated that this is just the indicated abuse, that women lie 41% of the time. This is not even including the unsubstantiated, and it was estimated that they lie up to 70% of the time when it comes to essay and other types of abuse.
Can you put something in the chat or something if you can?
Yeah,
if you
I can lead you to the report.
Okay.
But the U.S. Air Force repeated his report, and they got close to the same results. His same method was repeated across universities in the United States as well as in India, and in India, they got the same results.
Yeah, I definitely would like to see that study. And matter of fact, if you did a video on it, put the video in the chat as well, and so people can support the channel.
Sure.
Check you
So
out.
this is a global issue. If we're dealing with it here in the States, all the way over to India.
Yep.
So the stereotypical tropes and traits of men are just knocking women over the head with a club and then dragging them by their hair back to the cave. Well, probably isn't true.
If you get resources, if you're able to claim resources and support public goodwill, if you can get all of that simply on the basis of a word with no evidence being required, I don't know, as far as human beings are concerned, I don't know any group that at some point wouldn't abuse something that requires very few checks and balances to initiate. You know what I mean? Especially if you're able to, have law enforcement operate on your behalf. If you can weaponize law enforcement against somebody you're angry at, somebody who may have let you down in terms of the relationship expectations you had, or somebody that's decided that, he may not want to be with you anymore. There's so many different factors to it. Right. But as long as you have this capacity to call in these institutions at your behest with no real, critical requirement as to why, what should get them to operate on your behalf, who's not going to abuse that? Human nature would suggest that somebody will.
So that's why Ian's ex-wife felt free to use that leverage in her speech.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I don't. So let me just talk just for 1 second about that comment that human nature is that way. Now, it could I can see two possible theories. People would abuse the ability to get away with false allegations because that's just how people are. And so a lot of them would do it because that's just how some people are. But another theory might also be people who have personality, psychological disorders from being traumatized, which many people possibly are, would abuse that. And it's not human nature. It's the human nature of a distorted mind, of a distorted person. So when we realize the fact that people would abuse that, okay, who specifically would abuse that? Is it all people? Because even if, I was a woman, why would I start making up false allegations to jail the father of my kid? That doesn't make any sense, especially when he's I have text messages from my ex. Oh yeah, I'm getting everything I want from you. Let's have more kids, whatever. Why would you do that? That doesn't make any
You know,
sense.
I was
You know?
about to say the same thing. My ex-wife said to me before she met me, and I mean genuine, you know, and I understood this. You know, before she met me, she really didn't know what love was. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I was a lot. I mean, I was like a god almost in a lot of ways to her. You know what I'm saying? In terms of her mental health and her emotional stability and a lot of these things. So I mean, that's a good point. And funny thing is, you know, at one point after we split up, after she got caught embezzling over $10,000 from she was an office manager for a chiropractor. After she got caught, they caught her embezzling over $10,000. Her mother paid it off, so she didn't, you know, so they didn't press charges because you know, they had the money to just pay him off or whatever. But her mother, I guess, at that point had some leverage to make her go get some psychological, you know, at least if she wasn't gonna get punished, I guess the parents were like, okay, we're gonna pay all this money, at least go see somebody. And she got diagnosed with schizophrenia and a
Well,
couple other things.
let me add to this though, because I'm also saying this as an educator. One of the things that I've seen on college campuses and to some extent in K through 12 in this last 20 years, most particularly, there's definitely been a shift. There's a culture of, most particularly with women, there's a culture of almost a type of equity with being able to outline in how many ways you've been abused. The language of this has become so common that they're actually I don't want to use the word props, but they're actually there's a kind of social acknowledgement even that comes with being able to identify yourself as having been victimized. There's even a social acknowledgement among some women where, you know, when you and I have a student who's going through this now, where transitioning into single parenthood is something that's considered a plus. Like there are certain experiences that go with this that have become very much a trend. They become very much a way of describing, especially Black womanhood. These are, you know, I don't think this is just the purview of, you know, people that are dealing with various degrees of mental disorder or whatnot. I think there's been a culture of celebrating victimization, especially in regard to weaponizing it against this idea of the patriarchy. This is one of the things we've heard from the 80s and 70s, really, but we've definitely started to hear a lot more of it post intersectionality. This idea of fighting the patriarchy, right? And this idea of being able to identify how you've been damaged by it and the kinds of social kind of pluses, social acknowledgement, social support you get for being able to identify these categories. I've seen this growing with women in the last 25 years in educational spaces. They are churning out people that have this kind of mindset, that have this kind of idea about how to see the world. And I don't think it's too far gone from reality to see people who would use an opportunity to highlight someone as an abuser, and not even abuser in the specific IPV sense, but even in the more generic sense. Like I have students that will say, I've been abused. And when you ask questions about the abuse, sometimes it even comes down to having a disagreeable conversation. But they frame this as abuse, right? The language goes
I
from
think you might be
disagreeable
mixing two. I
conversation
think you
to
might.
abuse.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I finished. Go ahead.
Oh, I think somebody else. I don't know. I think I agree with you and I disagree with you. But I'm not. You know, I've been to college campuses. I went to Cornell. I went to WashU Law School. I've been to Pepperdine. I was at Pepperdine for a while. I haven't. So let me talk about what I agree with first. I agree with you that people are saying they are being abused or they've been abused when they are having conversations where they don't get their way. Like for example, I don't know when the video was released, but I saw it a couple days ago. A video of this conservative guy named Steven Crowder having a conversation with his wife, and everybody is saying it's abuse. I put it up in a 40-minute video going line by line, what happened, saying it could be abusive, but there's no clear evidence that this is abusive at all. And it might be that the woman is the one being abusive, possibly. And he does accuse her of being abusive in that video. And even the people on this conversation, possibly might say, oh no, Troy, no, the guy was definitely abusive. I don't know, because it seems pervasive that that he's being labeled abusive for that. And I watched that through the lens of my experience, and I saw a lot of things in there that didn't seem that it seemed very weird. If you want to look at the video that I posted on that, you can. So there's definitely this situation.
He didn't put hands on her.
No,
Nope.
well, not on that video for sure. Actually, she didn't even allege. I'm pretty sure they're getting divorced now. I'm pretty sure she's never alleged physical abuse at all.
Okay.
Although she did allege that it's not on the video, but she says at some point after the video or something, I don't know, that he said, "I'm gonna fuck you up" or something. I don't know, but it wasn't on the video. I heard that he admitted it. I don't know. I've never seen the admission. I don't know, but anyway. There's definitely, that's just one example, and it's a clear example because it's videotaped of conversations. He was just asking her to like walk the dog or something, or like before she went out. You can check it out. But conversations are being labeled abusive. That's happening, and that's bad, and that needs to be fought against. I have not seen in my time at college campuses. Well, first of all, on any abuse allegation, it could be true or it could be false. So we need actual evidence. That's the main thing. We need evidence. Okay. Now, but the theory that people are saying I've been physically abused or sexually abused to get some kind of benefit out of it, that could be true. That is definitely true when they have kids with the person, when they're trying to get child support, etc., or when they're just a vindictive ex. But there are real benefits, even just punishing other people that are associated with it. But the people on college campuses, they don't have kids. They're not really trying to punish their exes. They're just saying, I was abused as a child. I was abused as. I have not seen them get benefits. I know that people give them sympathy and stuff, but I don't know why you would view that as a benefit if you were mentally healthy. So I'm not sure about that one.
That's the benefit. Attention is the new currency.
Right.
They're not mentally stable. So on the surface, they look mentally stable. They get up, they go to work, and we all got something off with us. I'm not poking fun at mental health or anything like that. They get up, they go to school, they go to work, they live a functionable life. But if I can get this extra attention and I can be important, so to speak, a lot of women will use that as an excuse because guess what? Again, it's par for the course. I'm a black woman. I had to have been abused. That's literally the term.
I don't disagree with you.
That's the Me Too.
Yeah,
that's the Me Too term.
Mm-hmm. All I'm saying, and it's a subtle point, and it's a little bit of a complicated point, a little bit maybe. It's just that, like what you said, they're not all there. That's my theory, that these people who are doing this have something off with them. Now, you agreed with that, I think, but you also said everybody's got something off with them, which might be true also. It might be that our entire society has mental disorders of various types.
Well,
or almost all.
And I think it comes down to functionality, though.
Yes, that's right. That's right. It does.
Between the social aspect, where I wouldn't like. I got military-wise, I'm diagnosed with depression. So, but I don't want to harm anybody. I don't want to see any harm done just based off of my words. So I don't think, this is just me personally, this is just a Kofaism. This doesn't represent Dr. Hasan Johnson or any of his affiliates. This is just a Kofaism. When you have somebody who can intentionally inflict harm based off their words, one, something is wrong with them because they want to see it. But two, something isn't quite wrong with them because they know it's wrong, but they know the society they're standing in. They know it can be weaponized.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think we've gotten to the point, maybe Doc knows, I don't know. I don't think we've got to the point scientifically or academically where we name that gray area where something is actually off, but you're cognizant enough to use it as a weapon. I don't think we've gotten to that gray area yet.
But let me add this. Let me add this real quick. And what I want to do, I'm going to let Troy finish his point, and then I'm going to offer a closing question, and we're going to go from Ian to Kofa to Malika to Dead Set, and then to Troy. As far as that. So, but let me just quickly say, I wasn't talking about disorder for a reason, because one of the things that I think has greatly contributed to a culture where there's a certain type of social equity behind claiming a particular degree of victimization, I think social media has played a great deal into this culture. We're talking about a global kind of dynamic almost where the currency is attention. And for women, most particularly, one of the ways they've been able to even form a political basis to even secure resources, a lot of this since the late 1960s has been very much tied to presenting women as victims as a means of establishing not only a culture, but also a political kind of a substantive dynamic in play. I mean, this is all tied. You're talking about policies like VAWA, you're talking about resources, you're talking about family court, all of these different institutions that leverage resources on behalf of women are very much tied to victimization. And so when I talk about this in terms of this idea of social equity around attention and around victimization, it's not just a delusional thing that people wake up one day with. There is a material basis that reinforces and justifies, incentivizes really this type of dynamic where being able to articulate yourself on some of these lines is actually reinforced in the environment you're in, especially in an environment like higher education. These ideas, most particularly coming out of intersectionality, have only added to that, right? Well, what is intersectionality? The idea that you are oppressed as a woman based on your race, class, sex, and gender, and other categories. We're seeing the language of the currency of attention and victimization being weaponized materially, politically, organizationally. These things have been happening for decades. Then you get social media, which adds to it that much more. I would be surprised if we didn't have a culture of this with all of these kinds of things happening historically and in terms of the larger society. But I'm gonna let Troy speak, and then I'm gonna pose a final question and kind of work it back to Troy from Ian. But go ahead, Troy.
Virtually everything you just said is true. It is my own case. There's undeniably resources and child support and all kinds of things to incentivize women and possibly men sometimes to make false accusations and play the victim. That's absolutely true. And I just, but when, but even to use those resources, like in my case, the person that wants to use that to destroy her own child's life does in my case have mental disorders and trauma.
Oh, no question. Right.
Well documented. Okay. Right. And I imagine that I could imagine somebody who's healthy and just say, hey, I just want to take advantage of the system. Let's do it. But it's kind of hard for me to imagine, but I could imagine it. But then when you get into, it's a broad spectrum of support. When you get into just going after sympathy and not really any material benefit, although attention can be monetized and and stuff like this, but the way I don't think we should lump everything together, and I don't think it's just an academic discussion either. Which is it, this or this, and it doesn't really matter. Here's one impact. As a Black man or as a man, if you want to have a family or a wife or a girlfriend, you're going to have to choose one of these women. Okay, so either you can have the theory that the system's corrupting even every healthy person, and so no woman's safe, or you can get a little bit more what I would consider nuanced and say there's actually a psychological profile or several that you can delve into, and you could separate the bad ones, which might be 50% of them. I don't know. It might be 90%. I'm not sure. And you don't even have to be that bad, because once you get into having kids and relationships, there are material benefits. So just even a little bad might be enough to push somebody in that direction. So you got to find the 1% or 10% or 20% or 50% or whatever of women that are totally psychologically healthy. And if you can do that, which I've done with my wife, then you can have a great relationship and a great life with that person. But if you don't view the nuance, then you're going to start looking at, well, any woman is corruptible and will do this to me, and then I don't know where you go from there. I guess you just stay single, or maybe you sign contracts with people, but you can't sign any child support because those contracts will be just thrown out basically. So but you're just never going to have a family, and you have one night stands with women or something, and then you get them to sign a contract every time you do or something. I don't know, but
Yeah, go ahead.
I think there's a lot of guys who look at it in terms of Western culture, and so you have a dynamic where men are actually looking at environments where women are raised in a wholly different cultural milieu. But I think there's a number of different ways to approach it that don't have to necessarily require anything massive like just walking away from all women. But here's the thing. So again, it's about almost 2.5 hours. I want to give Troy the opportunity to close out, but I want to start it by asking this question. I'm gonna first ask it to Ian, then Kofa, then Malika, then Dead Set. So Ian, question on the table is, based on the things we've talked about, the things you've experienced, what would you say to younger men listening to this, essentially your younger self? What would you say they should do or not do in relation to the things you've experienced and the decisions you made when you were in the past? What would you tell young men?
Man, that's a difficult.
To
What?
do or not do in regard to what you've experienced?
Okay. With regard to what I would do, I would tell them, not to give. I would essentially, because essentially, I really didn't become successful in dealing with women until in the recent past, when I was dealing with a girlfriend who was being abusive, right? One time he was here to argue me. We had an argument and she tried to drop kick me. You know what I'm saying? Type of thing. I mean, and then, this is the same female that come back and talking about she needs my love, and I mean, this madness. But essentially, because I never stopped loving her, but but this time I left and I didn't come back. But essentially what I had to do, right? And I don't know if I can teach this or this is teachable. I had to not give my heart fully to her. You know what I'm saying? And before, I guess I felt if I didn't give my heart and soul to a woman, I was robbing her. You know what I'm saying? And so what I essentially had to do was not feel guilty in not giving my heart fully to a woman. And so once I was able to do that, I was actually able to dominate somewhat the relationship, or not, I mean, it was dominate to see things from a higher looking down. I was able to maneuver where I wanted to be based on what her behavior was. I still loved her, but it was a nuanced part of a thing that I did where I didn't give her fully myself. And I realized, okay, I need to be giving myself first that love, that love, God, myself, and then she comes second. So that would be the advice. Never give your heart, like they said, like he said in the movie Tropic Thunder. Never go full. What was it? What he said? Don't go full. I know one of y'all seen it. Yeah. He said, yeah. He said, he said, don't go full retard. You never go full retard.
I'll say it for you. Don't worry.
Yeah. So that would be my advice.
Okay. Hey man, I appreciate you coming up, Ian. Thank you, brother.
I appreciate you.
All right, man. Let me go to Kofa with the same question. What would you tell younger brothers about what to do or not do based on your experiences up to this point in regard to the things we're talking about?
So what I would tell, and it's crazy, I was working on a video for quite some time. I'm trying to pinpoint stuff to tell my younger self. So I would tell the younger brothers, I'm gonna start out with the way I close my videos.
Mm-hmm.
You matter. You're not crazy. Make better choices.
Okay.
That's how I end all my videos. So what I would tell, that's the first thing. That's what I want you to understand, is that you matter, you're crazy, you're not crazy, and to make better choices. I want you to understand that. What I would tell you not to do is not to accept things and let it become the norm from certain people.
Okay.
When I'm gonna use the F word, when your feelings are going on, when you got that gut feeling in your heart, your mind, because man, we got intuition too. We just don't get told that, there's such thing as men's intuition. When you know something is wrong, you cut it off at the knees. You cut it off as soon as it starts. So don't allow people to mistreat you. Stop being so forgiving. What I would tell you to do, everything that you're giving to everybody else, give to you.
Okay.
Give to you. Because with if you're this spearhead for everybody else, if everybody else can call you when something real is going on, I'm talking money, somebody sick, that type of stuff, real life, not the attention, not hey, let's go out and drink. If you're the person that they're calling, especially if you're a younger man, you're well on your way to becoming a solid, that quote unquote high value man. Because people already trust you to take care of real shit. It's not playtime with you. So if they're asking you to do that, it's don't take it as usury. Take it as wear it as a badge of honor, but don't allow them to use you the wrong way, if you get what I'm saying. So if you're being asked to do real stuff, go forward with it. But make sure you give yourself some of that too. Most of it. You can't pour from an empty cup.
Appreciate that, brother. Thank you.
Appreciate you having me on, dog. Appreciate everybody else, man. Appreciate your story, Troy.
Amen. Thanks for coming up. Y'all support Growth Talk with Kofa. Go to the channel, subscribe, and support what he's doing over there. All right, brother.
Thank y'all. Night.
All right.
Brother Malika, coming to you. Same question. What would you tell younger men to do or not do in relation to your experiences and what we're talking about tonight?
I just broke it down with 4 ideas. If a woman tells you she has been abused in any kind of way in the past, be cautious. If a woman exhibits any form of physical, mental, or spiritual abuse to you, leave. Vet women. Vet them. Ask questions. Look into their family history. Like Troy said, does this person have a history of abuse in their family, psychological abuse? Ask her about her past relationships. Ask her about different things going on, and whatever it is. And if she starts to wince and she's giving you the side eye and wonder why you're asking her so many questions, that's a red flag. Leave. And for a brother, if you ever have problems from family, from past relationships, or just problems going on, period, get therapy for your trauma.
All right. Appreciate that, man. Especially the last minute nature of my request for you to come up. Thank you, brother.
Thank you, brother.
All right, man. All right, I'll let you go, but appreciate you.
Peace.
Dead set. Same
Sir.
question, good brother. What would you tell younger men to do or not do in relation to what we're talking about and what you've experienced?
Succinctly, I would tell them to pay attention to their environment, because an environment will often dictate how women act in general. Understand movements like women's suffrage or Me Too and how they coincide with legal philosophies like the chilling effect or things like that. Learn and research broad issues and weigh them against what you read and what you see. Know that the world is bigger than your locality and seek better things elsewhere, because what's often considered best in the world may not be what's best for you as an individual. And when you can make reasonable predictions about women and the environment, that the majority of them, that the majority of the time we can make reasonable predictions about them, then I would say then that you are more ready to step into deeper relationships, and that includes fatherhood.
Okay. Much appreciated, man. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for coming up. I put a link to Dead Set's channel, one of his videos earlier, into the chat. Support his channel, support the work he's doing, and definitely keep your ear to the ground whenever the brother tells you about what's going on in his life, because it will give you pause and you will need to take notes. So shout out to Dead Set. Troy, I want you to answer the same question, and then I want you to kind of give your closing thoughts. And I do want to make sure you don't leave until you tell people how to find you, how can they find information about what you're doing, your organization. So those are the 3 things. Answer the question, give your closing thoughts, and let people know how to find you. Question is, what would you tell younger men to do or not do in relation to what you've learned from your experiences?
I will post a link to my Facebook profile or maybe you can, into the comments so anybody can find me. Because the first thing I would tell people to do is, if you're about to get good advice from this comment, then that means, and this short comment, then that means you need more. And so reach out for help, because this is not going to be enough. Okay, this is complex stuff, and we're dealing with social systems and psychological patterns, and you need more than just the advice that you heard at the end of this talk. So, and you, even if you've been through the situation, you already know more, you might still need more. So don't rely on just this video. Oh, now I'm ready. No, you're not ready. Second thing, you're especially not ready, perhaps, for adding children to the mix. That, if you add children to the mix, the way our social system is set up, the way the court system is set up, it is corrupt. It doesn't run like anything that you would imagine. Do not have kids unless you have carefully vetted the person. And the person having children, understand that even if a person doesn't have specific trauma related to kids coming out of their vagina, like my ex had, childbirth and rearing children is a difficult process just normally in our society. There's not a lot of support given to parents. And so just that stress alone, plus other things that could be going on in your or your ex's life or your partner's life at the time you have kids, could trigger even a sort of off person to go off the deep end, which they're encouraged to do by lawyers and court systems. So you have to vet the person before having kids. Now, you don't even want to get in a relationship with a crazy person without kids, but at least without kids, you can probably leave, unless you're being, physically I'm going to kill you if I leave or something like that. But if you don't have kids, they're probably not that deep into it. So the kid thing is a critical decision point. But still do vet people before that, and don't just start relationships like they're not just something to play with. They maybe that would be a good thing. I don't know. But in our current system, they are dangerous things. Don't toy around with them and think you can just, start a relationship with this person or that person. It's got to be a more serious thing if you want to protect yourself. Now, it might go okay if you're not serious, and things might be fun and whatever. But I think the approach to relationships has to shift to an acknowledgement that most people, given the social system they're operating in, and perhaps their trauma history and various other factors, things can go off and things can go badly off, and you don't want to be in that situation.
Indeed. What would you say are next steps for you in terms of what you're dealing with? What's the next step?
Well, I have a lot of next steps. Right now, I have to get off this call and file something with the Court of Appeals so that I can get priority hearing on the appeal of my recently denied DVRO. I have to file a second DVRO, the abuse litigation, with more details, unnecessary details, but much more details, so that I can try to get the judge to change his mind. I have to file the opening brief in my other appellate case from the time when I beat her litigation, but was denied my attorney's fees, and also not just that, but those were the illegal custody orders first issued, and maybe those can get reversed. And other than that, I'm raising my daughter and loving my wife and my second daughter, who I get to see, obviously. And other than that, I'm trying to help. I'm running my business. I teach people how to get into law school, how to do the LSAT test, and basically advanced reading and reasoning and thinking skills. And other than that, I'm trying to spend some time helping other people who are going through these issues. That's part of why I'm on this call today, so I can get the word out to people so they can avoid these problems for themselves, or deal with the problems that are currently occurring. And that's my life right now. Although I'm thinking of other businesses and books to write and all kinds of things, but I don't have time to nearly do any of all that stuff I listed. So those other things are on the back burner right now.
I bet. Do me a favor. Not only give me the Facebook link, but if you want people, to tap into your business, people that may want help getting into law school, give us a link, so people can find, how to
Sure.
secure your service.
I could tell you that right now. It's best, BEST, and I'll give it to you later. Best LSAT, LSAT, that's the test. BestLSATtutor.com. I'm the best LSAT tutor in the world, so I got the best LSAT tutor thing URL. And if you want help learning how to articulate yourself, understand communication, listen carefully, and in an analytical fashion, getting really deep into every point that's made and being able to respond to it effectively. That's basically what I'm teaching people for the LSAT test. It's just a broadly useful skill set that lawyers have to have if they want to be competent. And then my Facebook is just facebook.com/Troy, TROY, D Daniel Pasulka, PASULKA. But I'll put both of those links in the description later.
Please do. Thanks a lot, man. Appreciate that.
All right. Thank you.
My best to you and your family.
All right. Have a good one.
Right. Yeah. Powerful. A lot of serious testimonies. Please continue to extend them in the comment section. Let us know what you've been through. Let us know what you're thinking about. Let us know your reactions to some of the discussion. Continue the discourse in the comment section so we can learn from each other, support one another. Nevertheless, I appreciate y'all's support tonight. Again, support the Onyx Report. You can become a member on Patreon and support both the Institute for Black Male Studies, the Onyx Report, and the Onyx TV network. You can support all of that by becoming a patron of the channel. So just go to Patreon, as you can see the link or the URL on the screen at the bottom left. But you can also Cash App, PayPal, Venmo, Super Chat. Help us to continue bringing you independent Black male thought. Y'all have a good one. Appreciate y'all. Peace. I am here to tell you, brothers, we are not criminals by birth, perennial rapists, incapable intellects, man-children, sperm donors, child support wellsprings, success objects, walking phalluses, ATM machines, lottery tickets, unintelligent henchmen, valueless assassins, pro bono mercenaries, unpaid bodyguards, interchangeable stepfathers, child discipline proxies, unpaid repairmen, workhorses, emotional tampons, or any other socially accepted dehumanizing stereotype. We are thinkers, inventors, innovators, leaders, fathers, and men. Embrace your humanity, know your worth, and extend your time, attention, and resources only to those who genuinely respect you. And remember, your worth is not defined by meeting other people's narcissistic, selfish, and unrealistic needs. You define your worth. Peace.